Okay. Activating. Right off the bat tonight, me and brother, joined by Tim Lim, our good, wonderful friend, our best friend in the whole world. But we were going to have Mark on. Mark is doing another stream tonight.
I
But yeah,
think
Tim.
is he gonna come on later?
Yeah, I think so. Assuming that we're still streaming later, because it's like, what if we go for 20 minutes and we're like, I'm sleepy,
Yeah.
I want something to eat. I don't know. Or we go for 4 hours of
I
just
could be.
nonstop.
We
The
could be
police
We could be in the mood to party
or
or
fold laundry. But yeah, that's a reference to Garfield. But I figured we would start off right off the bat with one of the most important things, something very immediate and pressing that happened over the last couple of days. So I gotta address this right off the bat, and that is, why did Doctor Strange not just teleport Gandalf to Mount Doom? That's, I think, everyone's
plot hole.
wondering the question.
It's a giant plot hole, and that's all that matters ever
Yes.
in movie.
That's why I'm so glad that Amazon is finally going to fix Lord of the Rings. It's needed it for many decades.
Lord of the Rings,
Just a
the
terrible
cardboard.
series, terrible franchise. You know how much I love franchises,
Terrible.
especially in Pensacola, Florida.
Pensacola.
In Pensacola, but no, the thing is, I was going to be like, here, Tim, here's what I think we'll talk about is, and then I'm like, well, I'm going to just start the stream and tell you what I'm going to talk about as we talk about it. So,
What a novel concept.
I know it's one of the best ideas. So another thing before we talk about that, because we can always talk about that in the next 10 minutes, I want to talk about how you are probably on death's door at this point, overworking yourself horrifically. I keep sending you the please take day off Texaco meme from the 1940s, and you're not listening. You're just working harder and harder. You've made like 8,000 pages of comic in this year alone. You have all these health problems. Your leg fell off. Your toes turned black. All that shit. But no, I'm like, you are actually working. Like, people have asked, it's like, how do you manage working a full-time job while doing a comic? And it's because you are a workaholic, basically, right?
Yeah, I think that's really what it boils down to.
I have to imagine that if your comic is succeeding, because that's the thing, is like
it's a factor.
I've got a comic, it's coming out. The work is getting done. It's like, oh, this is actually going to encourage me.
What is the comic? The comic you're working on? What's it named?
Common America.
No, my brother.
Oh.
Not gods at all.
Okay, yeah.
And that was the one name. If anyone remembers those old Preston streams, I kind of
those aren't going to be happening no more.
Not going to do that anymore. Not going to be working there anymore.
But yeah, you pitched that idea about the guy, the goofy kid who could sort of like a slacker loser, like a Benjamin Katz from Dr. Katz, who.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to, I kind of wanted to like speak to like somebody who might spend their time on 4chan or the internet or something.
Too much time there. But yeah, it was the kid who but he has time stop powers, and he's like, what am I going to do with my life with this? And the answer is, I don't know. It's kind of like that.
The answer is just that he's going to serve himself.
Well, yeah, it's sort of like about the.
There's no great war. We have no great war, no great depression.
His great war is a spiritual war, perhaps you could say.
Great depression is our lives.
Yeah. So anyways, the thing I was going to actually talk about, aside from Common America, again, big, huge, there's actually a lot of things. I wrote down a big list of things I could talk about. And now that I've the things on page, I'm like, I can talk about that anytime. It's on the screen. I'll just refer to that when we run out of other things to talk about. But Common America 5, big fat success as usual. And the reaction, the actual like customer and reader reaction is people are like antsy in anticipation. People are like they're chewing their fingers off like Werner Herzog and Jack Reacher in anticipation of the books even
That
shipping.
was a great movie. That was actually one of the great things about that Jack Reacher movie. Is like I had never even heard of it, and then somebody who did he Crate
Right. Yeah, Craig
did he
sent
read
us
the
sent
books?
us clip. He sent us the payphone scene, but then I saw the movie and I was like, wait, Werner Herzog's in the movie as a bad guy, and the scene with Werner Herzog is so good. Um, but that's neither here nor there. Although derailing is really part of the fun of our streams, isn't it? Um, but yeah, the like the anticipation that people have had for Common America 5 just to ship. It's like brand new. It's so popular that you have to ship in these giant chunks that's like taking weeks now. Didn't it take like 2 weeks for all of the packages to ship?
It's actually not taken as long as it took Volume 4 because Volume 4 we had it being fulfilled during the holiday season between Thanksgiving and December. So that was really insane. This is actually like pretty par for the course. I think we're going on to week 3, but we promised a May fulfillment. So I think they told me yesterday that the final package outside of Australia should actually be going out as early as tomorrow morning or as late as like I think Monday of next week if we're lucky. So I mean we're pretty much on track, but I think what it is what you were talking about. I think people are so used to us having a quick fulfillment that they've kind of lost track of time and now they actually pay attention. Whereas before it's like, oh, it's up in the ether, I'll get it when I get it, and then it's like poof, ta-da, wow, that only took like 5 weeks to get here. But now that they're so conditioned to that, it's like it's week 3. Where's my package? I mean, I had this guy email me a few days ago and was like, my package is missing, and I was like, you need to look at the
Yeah,
updates,
hasn't shipped
man.
yet.
Like
Yeah,
it's not
yeah, that's the
missing. It
thing.
just hasn't
That's
gone
kind of a
out.
good. That's a positive thing in a way because it's like so much legitimate reader excitement. That's one of the things I also was thinking about just I think yesterday was people legitimately anticipate something that is good, whereas you might see with other things elsewhere that people will almost gloat about how patient they can be for something that probably sucks. So there's going to be it's a very clear signifier. Like you, when something's really good, when people know it's good, when they've already known that's good because they have like several volumes already out to refer back to, they get excited at the idea of just like, is it come? I remember Nintendo Power, like every month I would be like, is it going to come on the first of the day? I remember one time it came in the middle of the month and I was so depressed that it wasn't coming immediately.
I freaking love Nintendo Power. That was a great magazine,
Yeah,
and
the
I was
early
happy that
'90s to
collected
golden era.
they
Yeah,
collected a
that
bunch
was
of those comics they had in there
Yeah,
as
we bought, yeah, the Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past one. We
yes,
bought that. That's
that one's
such a
fantastic,
good
and the
comic.
Mario
back
Brothers
in the
one is really
day.
good too.
The Mario Brothers one was great too because it even threw in some of those weird manga things that you don't see in usual things, like Princess Peach coming out dressed as Luigi in
Yeah,
his clothes, carrying a bomb and
yeah.
threatening to blow everyone up and being like really badass. I remember thinking that was hot when I was 12 or
Do you
something.
remember that weird character they introduced? I forgot what his name was, but he was like the Yoshi spokesperson. He was like their salesman, and he sold the guide on how to speak Yoshi. And Mario was like, "How much is that gonna cost?" "Oh, it's gonna cost you like 5 coins." And he's like, "Oh my gosh, that's a lot of money, but it might be worth it to learn how to talk like
It's
Yoshi."
pure gold.
Yeah, and then he buys the book, and the book is like how to speak Yoshi, and it's like how to say hello, Yoshi, and then the Yoshi
I'll
says
just
like Yoshi
Yoshi.
back to him because that's all they can say, and he's like, "What a ripoff!" I remember, I think as a kid, that was my first introduction to kind of like the weird salesman mentality
Yeah,
for
the
good
idea of the
reason.
snake oil salesman. See, that's the thing is that that's actually clever stuff, and that's actually good. That's an example of adult humor that's not dirty or anything. It's meant for adults, but it's in a way that kids can understand it. And
Yeah,
it's probably a good thing to expose kids to. Is
it's fantastic. It was great, and I'm glad that apparently it's gone into several reprints. Every time I go to Barnes and Noble, it's always on
Mhm.
the shelf, and it's not like a dusty copy either. It's like a pristine copy that's on there, so it
You
shows
don't
that
want it.
people like
You
it.
would prefer it to be slabbed in some kind of plastic case
in a
so you can never
plastic coffin, so you can't open it ever.
You
Go
laugh
on,
at
read
that. I have
it.
several of those, but they're all my own books. Like I don't think they're anyone
Well,
else's.
slabbing
But
your own books is it's like, yeah, look at my book. I
did
won't
I
even
did I tell you
read
guys
it.
this story? The reason why I do that is because when I was a kid, I didn't win any trophies whatsoever. People are like, "Oh, you must have won trophies for art and whatnot." And I was like, "No, I never won a dang trophy my whole
What about
life."
for athleticism?
Oh,
I had a participation trophy because I was on the basketball team, but it was basically just something they had to just give so that your kids wouldn't get upset. But I remember thinking to myself like, I just did this so I could get like an athletic credit or something. Like I didn't really care. Why am I doing? What am I gonna do with this trophy? But
yeah. What's the
um,
purpose of the trophy?
anyway, I forgot whose house I was in, but there was an artist who I respected, and he was like kind of in the same position I was. But that's what he did was he actually got all of his books graded and had them on the wall. And so that's what Mark and I do is we grade our own books, and that's it. Because like I said, I don't have any
What do you
accolades or
give
anything like
them?
that. There's different places. Comic book shops can do them for you. Some of
I
them
mean,
have
no, I mean,
CGC ranks.
what grading do you give your own books? A
No, you
9,
don't. They
10?
grade them. Like you
10
send
out
it
of
to
10.
them, and
Oh,
then
they
they will grade
okay.
them.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say I'm giving mine a 10.
10
The
out of 10.
highest one I own is a 9.9. They say that you can't really get a 10 unless you're basically at the end of the assembly line and actually like picking the books off the conveyor
That
belt
might
as
be
they
a nice
come.
thing to do, I guess. But I mean, also theoretically, you could just bribe them. I don't know,
I don't know. I've heard that
allegedly.
that's really hard. Not
Yeah,
saying that these
yeah,
people
they'll
try
probably
to
take a
do it.
lot of money for them to actually. You have to probably bribe a lot of people to
They
really
have a
look
lot
the
of
other way.
integrity.
Yes.
I think
Well, I mean,
it's kind
to
of an
be honest,
assembly
I
line
never
of
saw that
people.
whole thing as really being that worth. I always saw it as like a status thing. But if you're doing it for yourself, you can at least pretend it's ironic or something. Or if you are sort of giving yourself like a gold record, it's like, well, I sold this much, and it's like it's a good memory of a thing. So let me put it in a frame, something like that. That makes sense at least.
Well, and the other
Um,
thing too is, so it used to be, there's obviously arguments in terms of like, should you do it, should you not, and then there's also the cost factor where it's like, my gosh, it's cost me an arm and a leg to get graded. But we found this other company that does it. They're the competitor to CGC, and I think they're called CBCS, but they're a lot cheaper. I think like each book was only $18 to
It's how you
submit.
do it is just on. I mean that makes so much sense. Is like this other company will grade your comic and slab it for you, but we'll do that. We'll just do the same thing for you for way less, and because
Yeah,
it's really just it's symbolic. It doesn't actually mean that much.
no, and like I said, the grade to me doesn't really matter. It's just the fact that it's just
Hmm.
encased, so that
Yeah,
it's a nice showcase piece when people come and visit the house or something, and I can
for
show
one of
them.
your own books, which of course you always have other. I know you have other copies because
I
we
don't,
have
so
other
I'm.
copies.
This is a really embarrassing story. So I typically just keep one copy for myself. I have like one copy that I'll encase and then one copy to read. But
Hmm.
Common America Volume 2, I sold my last copy and I
No.
do not own a copy of it. I actually had to trade a hardcover version with a friend of mine who owned the softcover version. And I told him that I had 5 left of the hardcover, and he said, "Well, I want the hardcover because I really don't
Yeah.
want the softcover anymore." So I actually sold my own product. The other one I don't own is I do not own the original standee because I gave my last one to Mark. So I actually don't own my own merchandise
Yeah,
either.
those things are high in demand too. There's a lot of people who have a bunch of, I've seen pictures again on Twitter, just all over the place. Is two things: is people opening their boxes and showing like the standees and the postcards, and the thing I like the most though is the people who talk about the actual story and is like, oh, I liked it when Carly did this or when Misha did that. Or oh, it looks like
Actual
there's going to be
character
some
moments.
relationship
There's a,
problems.
so I was thinking about something you guys had said because you all in your videos you always talk about hug boxes, and
Yeah.
I was having this discussion this morning with Doug Ernst because it's something that Mark and I we haven't had to deal with, and that's good, which is this idea of people seeing us as celebrities because I don't get it, like I don't understand it because I guess growing up, I didn't grow up around celebrity culture. Like it wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna watch this movie just
Mhm.
because this actor is in
Yeah,
it.
the
Like I
the
didn't
80s
care.
were really overwashed with like the stars. I mean, that's been going for decades, of course, but the
Right.
80s and 90s especially.
Well, what we have enjoyed so far is the fact that people talk about our books. They don't talk about us. They really couldn't care less.
Mhm.
They like the fact that we're online and we can answer some questions regarding the work, but it's not about us. But I was telling Doug that, and I'm gonna have to address this in some future stream. But I'm starting to see some of this like kind of leak over. There was one man, and he had contacted me, and he was kind of irate. And this was about like a month or two ago. And he was like, "Hey, I just want to let you know your customer service is very disappointing because I never received my book." And so he luckily he
Okay.
used his real name, so
I
I
have
looked
a
him up.
feeling I know where this happened.
You know where this is going. The
Yeah,
guy did not do his survey,
the surveys.
and it was
I
not.
wish that Kickstarter would make you do the survey ahead of time, but
Well, it wasn't for a recent volume. It was like for volume 3, right? And
it was
so
like, yeah, last
and I,
year, wasn't it?
yeah, and I've mentioned this so many times. It is a mentality I do not understand.
Mm,
Take Amazon for example, or Walmart.com, or you name it. If I haven't heard from them in 5 days, I already start worrying and I start looking like, what the heck is going on? Like, are things
mhm.
moving? Did I get the delivery date wrong? Like, what is happening here? So it boggles my mind. It's like, you waited almost a year before contacting me. So I reached back out to him and I said, hey, just to let you know, you didn't fill out your survey. That's the reason it's late. But don't worry, if you fill it out, they're going to send it to you by the following Friday. That's typically when they check for the late surveys and start that fulfillment. And so he was very apologetic. He said, "Oh, I'm sorry. Like, I can't believe it. That I should have done better, whatever." And I said, "No worries." Well, this was about like a few weeks ago or a month ago, and he
Mhm.
reaches back out to me like 2 days ago, and he's just so apologetic. He's like, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's been bugging me ever since I had that conversation with you." And it was like this long paragraph, and I haven't replied to it yet because I'm like, I am just a human being. Like, I don't know. I've seen this so many times where people, like, someone will have a late book and they're called a name by the creator. And so they kind of go on this tirade where they're like, this guy is rude to me. I can't believe he called me that publicly. Like, this guy is the worst at customer service. His product is late. Don't buy this guy's book. And then a year later, he's apologizing to the creator. He's like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I can't believe I said those things to you. I should have never said it. And I'm like, you're the customer. Why are you apologizing? And in the
Yeah,
case of this guy, it's like, our interaction wasn't rude. I was very straightforward. I just said, no, your survey was late. Just fill it out and then you'll be okay. And that's it. But in his mind, he was like, I can't believe I think I insulted this guy and he's mad at me. I was like, why do you care? Like, why do you care that you've quote unquote insulted me? Like, I create something, you get a product. And this is not the first time that's happened. I think this has happened at least twice in the last 3 to 4 weeks. So talking to Doug Ernst this morning, I said, I there has to be something that we can do proactively where we're like, look, do not treat us like celebrities. I don't even want to come close to that. I
yeah.
don't want you buying any of my books because you like me, or if you think I'm a like a superstar or something. That's completely antithetical to, I think, the creative process. And as you guys said, you don't want the quote unquote hug box. You want people to talk about the work and have the work kind of exist independently of the creator.
I mean, I also noticed that it seems to be like people want to be building a cult of personality around somebody. I definitely noticed that right from the very start. I was like, oh man, Comicsgate. We're gonna save comics. We're gonna take over Marvel, and then we're gonna destroy Marvel, and then we're gonna make our own Marvel. And it's like, can we just
Make
make
up your
our own?
mind.
Can we be the independent
Yeah.
Well,
revolution at
here's the
least?
worst part about that example of the cult of personality. And
Mhm.
for people who are like, well, it's not a cult. No, I'm using the lexicon. It's called the phenomenon of the cult of personality.
But
It's
it
not it's
usually
not the
is
same.
culty anyways.
It's not the same
Cult
thing as
fiction.
like a Jared Leto cult, where there's people in robes on an island somewhere worshiping Jared Leto. But
Drinking poison Kool-Aid. Okay.
um, what's funny about it is that even if you accept that a cult of personality might be a quote unquote good thing, I think you guys had pointed this out, but it's like comic creators are not personalities. Even probably one of the big ones, like let's say a Jim
Certainly
Lee.
not.
A Jim Lee is not getting mobbed at Subway by the
Mhm.
paparazzi because of who he is. Like, honestly, we're at the lowest of the low of the totem pole.
Yeah.
You have a guy, you have like an actor, like a Bruce Campbell. Yeah, that guy's gonna get mobbed by people if he shows up in public. Like, people are gonna notice. But comic creators, like, those are the worst type of people to have any type of um, cult of personality or groveling for. I mean, the way
for a lot of reasons too. I mean, in a way, this topic already now is way bigger than this stream could even handle. It's like
well, here's
so
the
many
example.
sub branches.
Here's the example I gave to Doug, because he and I have gone through it. But let's say a convention is over and we're packing up and we're ready to go. It doesn't matter how popular you are. I don't even care if you're Kevin Eastman. When you're leaving a convention and you go to pack your car, there's not like a throng of people like chasing you to the parking lot to try and grab your clothes just to say you can brag and tell your friends that I touched Kevin Eastman's shirt or something like that. Like, it doesn't work like that. So I think that's the kind of the sad thing, is that I see it a lot with a lot of creators, but the reality is that I hope we never get to that point, and I'm trying to just preemptively nip it in the bud. So like you said, I'm glad that people talk about the work, but I'm preferring it if they leave it at that, because I think that's just a healthy conversation.
Yeah, the work first, the actual content. It's something that you don't see with even other comic creators. You don't see their fans or customers or readers or whatever. You barely see them talk about the actual content of the comics that they supposedly like. I mean, it's hard to even say if they like them or not, but with Common America, you can see it's completely authentic. It's one of the most genuine grassroots comic success stories out there, in fact, which I would think is right now is a good time to mention literally too, one of your guys' most favorite comics ever. But
we haven't read literally two, literally one. Sure.
Yeah, literally one specifically. Yeah, two is, here's the thing, two is going to be more of, well, calling it more of the same is like certainly not a great elevator pitch. It's
You're doing
a
a bait and
continuation of the
switch, aren't
story.
you? It's just porno.
It's just wall to wall. It's 800 pages long, and it's just nonstop pornography.
You're doing the reverse Common America. You think
Yes.
it's going to be like a wholesome book about this little girl, and then it's like,
Yes.
nope,
Yes.
she's all grown up.
Yeah, well, that actually is part of it. Is that literally two is about how she gets older and that kind of stuff, but it's still got that sense of humor and that kind of thing. One of the other, I'll play the trailer for it later. I guess I could play that after you go. I could play it right now if you want to actually watch it, because I think it's actually on the add to stream share video thing, but we don't have to do that right now because I actually still want to talk about the actual topics. Every time we get together, we always have such a great conversation.
Ooh, let's hear it. I want to know what the topics are.
Yeah, the thing that I wanted to sort of start with, we started with other good topics, of course. I think it's always worthwhile to talk about Common America because there's genuinely a lot of a lot to the phenomenon of it, not just the success, but like in the chat has been mentioned that people talk about the actual stuff. I did want to address some comments in the chat, but the comments in the chat are good and just worth reading on their own. Check out the chat, everyone. But the other thing I was thinking about that I was thinking of opening with talking about was the idea of humor, because Common America is like a funny, lighthearted. There's actually some drama. There's some surprisingly dramatic drama, but not to the point where it's it overrides or it changes the overall tone.
It never gets morose or anything.
Yeah, exactly. But there's it's in a way it's like kind of a good comparison to Sailor Moon, but I think more grounded in a better way. Like the double pun of Common America, where it's like common as in masked, I think in Japanese.
Yeah.
And common as in the salt of the earth. The Common American is actually a really good indication of the grounding of how it's just like regular life, regular people, and dealing with sort of the regular problems of situations of life itself. And from the very beginning, that's been very strongly established and put into the book. That's one of Mark's biggest strengths, is that he's really stuck to that. How each volume is about, kind of regular problems in a way, but put into this sort of magical girl fun setting. And so that's always great. The other thing I was going to really talk about, though, was about humor. And that's another thing that you and Mark both definitely have a very strong control of is internet culture. Like I was just saying earlier, on our Discord, is internet culture is something you actually understand. Both you and Mark actually understand.
Yeah, having your pulse on like the current generation,
But not just that, because even if you didn't have it like directly and
your
squarely,
finger
you
on the
kind of
pulse.
have just an understanding of the sort of the flavor of it, and like sort of weird little meme references in the background. And it led me to this sort of this observation about putting memes in as jokes in your comic and how you can actually do that wrong. And Common America doesn't really do that wrong. And I think the example I really wanted to go through, because I've actually done a bunch of like just for goof comics for myself decades ago and that kind of thing, is I remember putting in like just 4chan memes into a comic. And I remember a year later coming back to it and reading it. It's like, this is completely incoherent. If you didn't remember every single individual meme or like references, throwing in just random references, like it worked in MS2 and I think in a way that's part of the problem is MS2 was a great show, but it sort of prided itself on some of the most obscure references to stuff just out of nowhere suddenly being thrown in. But that's what the show was kind of about, while still being funny. But it leads to a generation of kids and people who grew up watching that and being like, I can do that with whatever I make. And it really doesn't work unless, for example, I think this, personally, me, I think this example, the little screen cap of the new script that's on screen is it's about this Korean sort of 19-year-old girl who's going to avenge her parents. So she travels to the mystical, far-off lands of Alabama to learn about gunslinging and go on a vision quest or some shit.
You have a Simpsons reference.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Is she while she's there, she parks outside of Chuck's Feed and Seed, and it's like the Sneed's Feed and Seed,
Yeah.
which became just some bizarre freakish meme. The thing is, throwing it in like this, the panel itself is an establishing shot of just where she is. So if you don't recognize the joke, you're not missing out on what's actually happening. You're not like, what's going on? Why? Who? What? Does it matter? No, it doesn't. But once you make it reliant to understand what's going on, that's when you kind of like if somebody's talking and you throw in like a reference to a meme. I think one of the greatest examples of it being done wrong is actually from the Black Panther movie, where the little sister goes, "What are those?" while looking at the shoes, and I'm like, what's happening? And it turns out it was a reference to some Vine video clip from a couple years ago, and it's like, okay, I never watched that, so now it's just confusing. And there is an element, I think in comics it's almost more prevalent, of maybe starting writers, fledgling writers who don't understand that and sort of don't get how to properly put in either like a little sly side reference that doesn't have to be seen as a joke, or putting it in as like a primary joke and people reading it and being like, what the hell is that? Once it's confusing to the reader, and knowing whether it's confusing is it's kind of the line to draw to try and understand. It's like, what's that supposed to be about and why? But
What the hell is this?
yeah, there's a lot of elements to that. That's part of one of the things to grow out of as a writer, is to understand like what kind of jokes to put in. If you're going to put in a reference or a meme, the best thing usually is to not at all. But if
Yeah,
you like in Common America, though,
don't.
it's yeah, usually just don't. But in Common America, they're just background details. They're like the memes are Easter eggs if they're in there at all, and the actual content of the story is right there on the surface, which is an important thing that I think gets overlooked. Even other people writing but then there's the whole topic of people in comics saying that writers are overrated and comics don't even need writers, and who cares about writers? Writers are useless. And so there's a lot of cluelessness, even with the so-called professionals of comics who
The professionals seem to be worse.
yeah, exactly. They have a bizarre, like, kind of schizoid attitude towards their own medium, where they don't seem to like comics, but they're the ones making comics.
I think the
And
thing that surprised me the most within the last 4 years was,
mm,
so again, when I was reading comics as a kid, I read comics in kind of a vacuum. Basically, I went to the store, I bought comics, I read them, but I led a normal life outside of that. I didn't even have friends who read comics. So
mhm.
there was no comics culture. It was just me reading the books. And then over time, obviously, I met Mark, and then he and I both enjoyed the same stuff. So then I had someone to talk about it with. But one of the shocking things that I learned recently, and by recently I mean probably within the last 4 years, was when he told me, he was like, "You didn't know that comic artists and writers like hate each other?" And I was like, "No, like that doesn't make any sense to me." And he said, "No, dude, like they really do. I mean, there was a huge kind of debate over that when Image started. It was just artists. They didn't feel like they needed writers, and I to this day still scratch my head whenever I see it pop up. In fact, on Twitter, I find it annoying. Like whenever someone decides to just pop in that question and say, "All right, everyone, let's settle the debate. Who's more important, the artist or the writer?" I'm just like, my gosh, why do we have to repeat this? Like, it's one of those. It's almost like a juvenile argument not worth having, because it's like having the Goku versus Superman argument. It's like you're missing the. In the case of that, it's like whoever wins is who the writer decides to win. That's exactly how that plays out. In the
Yeah.
case of who's more important, the artist or the writer, it's a symbiotic relationship, because you can't have a book without one or the other. That's like saying what's more important, the brain or the heart. I mean, you can't have a human being without either. So
Mhm.
it's
You
possible for the
can't
two to be
live. Yeah.
co-equal.
You
Um,
can't even live.
though what I would argue, though, and this is just me coming as an artist, is I do think the writer is more integral, and it's because of there was one book that persuaded me completely of that, and it was Garth Ennis's run on The Punisher.
Yeah.
I remember I
Okay.
almost didn't buy that book because the art was so awful. And rest in peace, Steve Dillon. I don't want to forget, and
Yeah,
just
Steve
and just
Dillon is
bemoan
kind
the
of a
dead.
weird situation for me because I kind of like some of his art, but it is like it's weirdly ugly, but
It's
I think it
weirdly
works for
ugly and
Punisher.
stiff. Like it's
Yeah,
everyone looks like they look like 3D models that haven't been posed as
Yeah.
dynamically as they should.
yeah.
Portray.
And I just
Yeah.
remember thinking to myself, like, I don't think I can buy this book. And luckily, the guy who ran our store was like, "You're gonna love that book if you pick it up." And so I did. Now, the interesting thing is that I stuck to it even when Dylan left, because I just thought, I don't care who the artist is, as long as Ennis is writing it,
Yeah.
it's gonna be good. And sure enough, I think by the end of his run, from the Marvel Knights through the Max series, he had to have gone through at least 5 artists before he
Mhm.
concluded it. And it was always good, no matter who the artist was.
The Max series especially is just fan like
That is actually
every
also a good point, though. Is like people just know bad art when they see it, or bad comic art, or art that
well, there
doesn't
can be
work.
some
You
room for
don't have to
debate.
have an argument or viewpoint to be like, "Oh,
Mhm.
this is good, this is bad." People will just tell you. People can just explain it, and it's instinctual. They don't have to have an understanding of like art form or anything like that. They're
Yeah,
just
the
what's up
composition or
here.
anatomy and stuff.
That goes all the way back to like a lot. If you ask anyone who watches a lot of anime, like, "Hey, pick up this American comic," they'll tell you this art is fucking ugly as shit. And
Mhm.
it's like, well, this look how many
Yeah,
lines there are.
the
They don't
question of
care.
the actual appealing art, that's one thing that we had been saying, like, going all the way back for, the past several years, fucking better part of a decade now, is that manga has been understanding how to make the art look its most appealing, not even its best or most accurate or more realistic or whatever, but the most visually appealing. And it's something that American art, that's American artists in comics, the old guard really does not understand, doesn't have any clue of. You can see the way they react to it is with just sheer confusion. But the younger generation is absolutely seeing it and saying that,
Mhm.
this the Japanese style of art is made to be as visually pleasing.
Again, these old comics pros in America are like, oh, you made it like look like Sailor Moon. Something's wrong with you.
Well, it's
like,
not just
what people want to look at because
it's creepy as fuck.
It's not just them, but for lack of better, well, I'm not going to use the word, but it's typically it's like a 35 and older crowd who they just reject things a priori because it's, I guess, foreign or strange to them. But I saw this thing recently. It was on Twitter, and it was what was it? A lot of people were getting mad over it, but it said like pro versus beginner, and then pro, it was like this really highly rendered picture of a little girl, and that was what it said under pro or beginner, and under pro was the simplified version, almost like the cell shaded cartoon version.
I thought that was a shit post. Were they for real?
Yeah, well, I think people were getting upset about it, but I thought that the meaning behind it was, in order for you to simplify art, you have to get to a point where you can render it really well, and then you start breaking it down into its component pieces.
Well, it's like you have to know the rules to know when to break them.
Correct. And like, for example, I mean, I've only recently adopted like a manga aesthetic. Mark has known me for almost 2 decades now, and he's seen my art. Like, I didn't draw like that. I drew in a more realistic traditional style, and I got to a point where I was like, now I can start taking shortcuts, make the eyes bigger, make the nose smaller, make the lips less defined. But one thing I noticed, and this is something that you guys had talked about years ago, but I never forgot it, was we both agreed that the Japanese are very good at reverse engineering, and they will do what they need to evolve their style to catch up with a modern aesthetic. And I was reminded of that yesterday because I saw this grid, and basically it was take a character and draw them through like 4 generations, like 1980, 1990, 2000, and then 2010, 2020. And one thing that they did was like, so they took this character, I forgot who, it might have been Rally from Gunsmith Cats. When they made it to 2000s, her eyes were ginormous, like Slayer's size eyes. And then as they got to 2020, they shrank. It didn't go to where it was in like the 1970s, but it was like this happy medium where it was like, all right, I think we overdid it back then, but we just have to like step it back a bit and shrink it so they're not as off-putting. So I'm like, they're constantly learning. And I mean, when people ask like, are you a manga fan? I'm like, I'm not a fan of anything. It's a medium. Like, that's just, by saying I'm a manga fan means that 1, I'm a fanatic, and 2, I like all manga. Like, that's not true.
Are you a movie fan? It's like, well, yeah, I watch movies, but not like every movie.
Right, that's such a weird thing. Are you a movie fan? It's like, what kind of question is that? Do I like movies? I like music? Some movies. Like,
kind of like are you a fan of if comics were as sad as other mediums? And it's like, I just outgrew music.
Yeah, it's like, are you?
I listened to a bad album and stopped listening to music for 20 years.
Those questions on mediums to me are very bizarre because it's always like, oh, are you a fan of comics? It's like, I mean, I'm a fan. I'm a reader of maybe 3 titles, but that's such a broad thing to have an adherence to. Like, no, I mean, I'm not a quote unquote fan of a medium. I am a reader of certain titles in it, in the same way it is for music or movies or whatever.
You could say that I read less comics than I do like watch movies or listen to music.
I actually watched that Steve Jobs movie the other night.
That's also no, we did that. That also reminds me of like people. I forget what his name is, but it's like video games. Just the
like Roger Ebert,
the typical feminist shame. No, it was the guy who stuck a butt plug up his ass and tells you you're not a real man.
Yeah, Gavin McInnes.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, video games are for children," and it's like, what do you do in your free time then? Don't tell me that you don't do anything.
Yeah. Because that's what other people do in their free time, play video games. It just depends on how much free time you want to take.
It's a pastime.
It's kind of
much now, but
it's a very ignorant statement because I mean, like, adults play Candy Crush on their phone. I mean, is that not the same thing?
It's not the same thing. You're not a real gamer if you play Candy Crush on your phone.
Okay.
I'm saying it. A woman I'm saying it right now, coming down from the mountaintop, and I'm saying it right now. You're not a gamer if you play Candy Crush at all. Tetris Attack, though, great game.
You have to
I
play.
mean, if in your spare time you're sitting on your ass playing video games, sitting on your ass watching a movie, or sitting on your ass reading, or sitting on your ass watching football, you're still sitting on your ass.
Yeah,
So I
exactly.
mean, it doesn't really matter what you're doing.
Yeah, that was clearly part of the attitude. Was like instead of sitting around playing video games, you should be sitting around watching football. And man, it was like there's like bizarre masculinity signaling that's clearly covering for people being big gay wads and that kind of thing. It's very prevalent in.
Well, I think also he would
society.
probably tell you, "Oh, you should be taking care of your family, your trad family," and then it's like you're not doing this.
Yeah, you're not. Why
What
don't
you
you
should be
take care of
doing
your
is
trad
taking
family
care
and
of the
that kind of
Proud
shit?
Boys. I
Mm.
told you we're going to be talking about some pretty dangerous
Edgy
stuff in this show.
or
We're
transgressive.
finally let off the loose. We'll let off the chain.
Let
here.
off the leash. If we have been let off the leash has been released. Also, Jim Tuner mentioning manga has captured effective storytelling throughout art. There was another thing is that telling jokes visually is a really unique skill in comics that is actually it's weirdly challenging because it's a nebulous thing, but it's also incredibly easy. It's something that anyone can do on accident, but to do it intentionally sometimes is impossible or impossible for some people. First of all, you have to actually be funny.
I like
And,
Star Trek. When
there's a
Star
lot
Trek
of
is
people in
trying to be
comics who
funny,
aren't.
it's usually abysmal. But when
There are
trying to be
Mark
funny
and I were
and
talking about it
actually is
last
funny,
weekend, but there's a lot of some of the things that we're watching right now. What we like about it is that manga and anime for the longest time. I mean, it's Asian humor in general. I think Nick Mullen makes fun of it, where it's like, you know, any Chinese version of anything that's humor related is just nothing but people getting like hit in the dick.
Yeah,
Because it's like, oh, it's funny because she fall down the stairs. Like that's all it is, right?
getting
Or
electrocuted.
it's
You
like
know,
Asian
anime
humor
has
is
had
so.
a long history of that too.
It
Anime has
is, and
had a long
anime has
history
had
of
that long
awkward
history
jokes.
where they use tropes, and
Yeah,
it's just like, okay, here we go again. Like, you know, there's like something
yeah,
lewd
some of the most
happening, and then
you
some of
got
the
a
most
and then the
nosebleed.
nosebleed, and what we've been enjoying so far. And I actively search them out and I refer them to Mark, but I mostly like watch a lot of slice of life now, but almost all the things I'm watching, they don't use any tropes. It's all,
Yeah,
I guess, original humor in terms of, oh man, like, and I'll tell Mark there was this joke where this character did this and then this happened. It wasn't just, hey Mark, so there was this scene where this lady took off her panties and the guy's nose bled. Like, you don't have that
And then everyone
because
fell on the
they're
ground.
learning.
I remember back in the day, the late '90s, people unironically saying like Tenchi Muyo was the funniest shit ever, and it's like it's really not though. It's not funny. It's just using a lot of the same tropes. You've seen them already. They're just with different characters. Like regardless of how funny the show actually is, it's not really as funny as other stuff that's well, I think in a way,
We never watched any comedy because that's also the thing. It's like we grew up with like Married with Children and stuff like that.
yeah. Now that's funny.
Now that is a funny show.
That's a great show, and The Simpsons too. Of course, was The Simpsons was like some of the funniest people in the country all working on an actual cartoon. That was
Oh
like
man,
almost like lightning in a
like the
bottle.
first 3 seasons memorized.
Yeah, right. I mean, well, The Simpsons, I think it was Cumtown, they did that stream about The Simpsons, and they said, like, oh man, can you imagine if The Simpsons was as good now as it was in the 90s?
Yeah,
like, we wouldn't have jobs. Like, the only reason we're funny is because everything else sucks.
They were saying that specifically in reference to the Marge Simpson addressing Trump thing.
God.
And then it was just Nick
Marge.
Mullen doing the
Marge, you have dog's brain.
You have a dog's brain, but Marge, you don't have any principles. But it was like Marge saying, "We need to vote Kamala, and we need to vote for Joseph Biden."
You know what I don't like about Cumtown? Just too leftist.
Yeah, exactly. The you know the clip I put up of Tucker Carlson but gay. Got a lot of heat. It was very nice. It clearly somehow got into the algorithm, even with my channel being like false flagged every day for the past several years. But
I just got this. My wife just brought me this thing. I got a gift in the mail. I have the tiny bride from the Flork. He gave it to us as a gift.
Wow. By the way, one of the things I was thinking about, you're talking about like comedy. I think there seemed to be something from like after South Park, the South Park. Oh wait, we gotta see this. Is this Zippy? Oh no, it's Flork. Zippy and Flork, kind of similar sometimes, but yeah, that looks cool. Is
It's
the girl
heavy. Holy
Flork?
cow, this thing is heavy. So it's small. Like you can see me holding it right here. But this thing must weigh like half a pound. It's just weighed down with beans.
I was gonna say, is it filled with beans? Because that's usually
Yeah.
what makes them so heavy.
I've got
Yeah,
the
it's crazy.
Flork Mage action figure he did a couple years ago. That
The
thing's
Mage
awesome.
one.
It's plastic and not plush, but it's great.
The plush one looks really good. You know, heavy beans though is good because otherwise it could just fly off on the breeze and stuff. It's good to have it heavy. It's pretty cool.
If
Pretty
Flork is
cool.
listening, thanks a lot.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good.
He
He'll probably
should be.
listen. You know, I think he follows you guys too.
Our streams are so good. He probably should listen. But yeah, there was something about like the South Park era where South Park kind of had a weird catching on in Japan, and Japan's sense of humor sort of mutated after that, where the jokes became more situational instead of just the same old cliches over and over again. And you got stuff that wasn't exactly funny, but it was different, like that what was the one about the angel girl with the club that fucking just smashed the guy constantly? And it was called Beat to Death Angel Dokoro Chan or some shit like that.
What?
But that one had direct South Park references in it, and it had some like interesting jokes. But overall, I thought it was kind of dumb. But after that was like Shinobu Den Chan 2x2 or whatever ridiculous title. But that one I actually thought was funny. And then
We actually have that one on DVD. Full Metal Panic Famafu. We have that.
Yeah.
Oh, that one's pretty funny. I watched that about a month ago.
It's funny, but the original show sucks.
It's bad.
Really.
And so this friend of mine in San Antonio, he was like, "All right, man, here's some anime for you to watch." And he said, "Watch Full Metal Panic Fomufu." And I was like, "All right." Well, I was going through my list, and I just saw Full Metal Panic. I was like, "Oh, there's that thing he recommended." So I started watching it, and I got like 2-3 episodes in. I was like, "This sucks."
Yeah.
So I told him that, and he was like, "Wait, did you watch Fomufu or did you watch the original?" I said, "The original." He said, "No, you freaking idiot. Go watch Fomufu." And I said, "But I haven't."
Idiot.
I know. I was like, I haven't seen it yet, though.
It's like watching Star Trek: The Next Generation from the first season. What's wrong with you?
I'll do the logical thing. I'll watch
Watch it from the beginning.
beginning.
That's the logical thing.
The good thing about
helped,
Fomofu is that you can watch it without seeing the series, and who cares?
Absolutely.
It's just
Preferably without
vignettes.
seeing the series.
Preferably, yes.
I think what helped anime like evolve its sense of humor, especially like starting around the 2000s, was when they really got into the slice of life genre. And because that couldn't just do the nosebleeds or all the like, the characters are yelling at each other and they're turning into super deformed chibis running around in circles, that kind of shit, like Full Metal Alchemist, like that was their idea of humor. Like having to do more, like you said, sitcom style stuff, situational stuff, where the humor is almost more subtle and a bit more clever.
Mm-hmm.
And you start seeing that more and more.
Like clever and witty in a way.
Yeah. There's more wit applied to it, and I think it's because they had to do stuff in a more mundane setting of like the slice of life stuff, like K-On! And Azumanga Daioh and all those other shows, where it's like, it's girls at school. How can we do girls at school? And
Azumanga Daioh is great too.
Is it good? Mark, we were at Barnes and Noble, and Mark told me I should pick up that omnibus.
You should buy it on site. Absolutely.
Okay.
That one
it's
is
a good
It's like fucking cute too. Like Spy X Family is another one I was thinking of. A comparison of it's got that bizarre kind of sense of humor, but also being like wholesome, and it kind of throws them both into a sharper contrast as how bizarre the situation is with how wholesome the rest of the situation is. And the jokes like are kind of situationally based. Then they're based on those situations.
Well, Azumanga Daioh is interesting because it's that slice of life girls after school genre, but it doesn't have like that one hook. Like Little Witch Academia is they're girls after school, but they're witches. K-On! Like they're girls after school, but they're in a band. Like Azumanga Daioh is like, nope, they're just girls after school. There's no unifying theme or gimmick. It's just the characters. And
she just kicks her shoe off and it gets hit by a truck.
Yeah, it's just these, because it's adapted from a 4-panel comic, so it has the same sort of pacing as the Charlie Brown and Snoopy show.
Yeah, it's just very reminiscent of that. In fact, it's incredibly reminiscent of Peanuts.
Yeah, It's really mellow. It's like the kind of show you watch on a sick day, you know, when you're
Mhm.
just trying to be comfy, but it's just vignettes. So it's just a real quick, because they're adapting like 4-panel comics. So it's just a really quick joke, and then moves on to another one, then moves on to another one, and then the half hour's over and it's done.
Have you guys seen Asobi Asobase?
I think I've heard of it,
I
but
feel like I've heard of that, but I don't think I've seen
the
it.
names I never. You say the name, and it's like, what the hell is that?
I think you guys will really like that. I think Mark and I agree. That's the funniest show we've seen in the
That
last
one is
4
funny
years.
as hell.
Like
But that one is
it's
definitely
really funny.
not for kids. That's not.
Well, we're
like,
not talking
comfy.
to kids anyway.
Was that the
We're
one
talking
with the
to
hamster?
royal- What?
Was that the
That's
one
that's
with the hamster?
Umaru-chan.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, okay, never mind then.
That
No,
one's good too. I just finished it.
Asobi Asobase is just 3 girls after school, and I mean that's it. They just get into hijinks, but you can tell that they've learned
Oh,
from
was that the
Western
one
humor.
where like they're stuck in the elevator and start laughing or something? Or is that
No,
something
it's
else?
like I don't know which scenes to think of. Like there was one. I think what it got on the radar for me was there was one time when like one of their uncles is rich, and so they're like, we need a robot to like. Wouldn't it be nice to have a robot that could let us learn English? So like her dad makes this robot that looks just like her, but you learn that like her dad or her uncle or whoever like operates like a sex robot factory or something. And so like when they like pull the string on this doll to talk, it just says in perfect English like really lewd things. And so you could tell like
Oh, great.
there's 3 times in the show where there's English spoken, but you can tell that they actually got either an English speaker or they got someone who's really really good at speaking English to actually do the voices. But it's
They-
freaking funny. I watch it
There,
every year.
yeah. So they have this one ongoing joke in Asobi Asobase that's. I think it's funnier to watch as an English speaker than as a Japanese person, because they have this classmate who's drawn to look like a traditional like ukiyo-e arts geisha. So she's got like the ugly fucking face with like the tiny eyebrows and the pointy nose and the squinty eyes. She looks like one of those paintings, but she actually can't speak good Japanese. So she speaks. They got an English speaker to try and speak Japanese. So her Japanese is really bad, and so she'll talk like "Watashi no classmates wa totemo assholes des." It's just so funny to listen to, and she's like in like half the episodes.
Yeah, there's been a big culture shift of like cross contamination, cultural appropriation, both ways, if you will, of manga and anime catching on so much in America and the rest of the world, but then in a way, sort of backwashing back into Japan, where now they're like, oh, there's all these, voice actors and American voice actors, and there's all this American talent, and it looks like Japan is watching a lot more American animation and stuff. Like
Yeah,
there's
they do. One
these
of our
for King of the Hill and stuff.
Yeah, you were mentioning like South Park. One
Mhm.
of the people who is like an early Japanese reader of ours, she goes by the name Suda Pico on Twitter. She had like a tweet thread yesterday talking about like Butters' voice actor in Japan. Like she's like upset that like it doesn't match or whatever, which means that she actually listened to South Park in English
The original
first.
dub, the original authentic dub of
Authentic,
South Park.
ooh.
Well,
Yeah, and I
so-
just think that's funny because we like there's guys like us who it's like, oh, is it sub or is it dub? Which one do you do? And I'm like, that's funny that over there it's the same thing where it's like, what is this? Butters does not sound like that. Like, all right.
Butters
doesn't
is so
sound like-
distinct. His voice.
doesn't
Butters
sound
is
like
my
Butters.
favorite character too. On South
Oh yeah,
A lot of
Butters is
people
the
love
best.
Butters, yeah.
He's easily the best character in the show because he's so wholesome.
Yeah.
But you can do so much with that in a world where everyone's like basically found.
Well, they
out.
really defile him too with the wholesomeness. Like, because there's other directions you can go with that, but with South Park, it's like what horrific things, like drop him off
I
the
have to
roof
give
in a
credit
pig
to South
costume
Park
or
too,
some
is
shit.
that they seem to actually kind of understand. One of the things that they seem to like is the goth kids. Like
Oh, yeah.
every now and then
yeah.
the goth kids will show up again, and it's like, oh, that's great.
Hey Mark, send me. I know you know where to find it. Send me the link to Asobase, and I'm gonna send it to Thomas.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, going back to like the Japanese dubs of like American cartoons and the Japanese reaction to them, a lot of it's because of Netflix. So for a long time, they didn't get a lot of American cartoons over there because the broadcast networks would only want to show like domestic anime. So almost all foreign cartoons, American cartoons, were reserved for satellite, which not a lot of people in Japan had. And there's like Cartoon Network Japan and Disney Channel Japan, and for a little while there was Nickelodeon Japan, but then that went away. So they only got like a few of our cartoons over there. And like The Simpsons, the Japanese dub was on some satellite network called Wowio, like really obscure stuff. But then streaming happened and Netflix happened, and so they have more access now to American cartoons than they ever had before, and that includes like older dubs of stuff. So like they can watch the Japanese dub of The Simpsons from the 90s that only aired on satellite television that's been like lost for decades, and they can watch like the old episodes of South Park that got dubbed. And Netflix Japan has been picking those shows up. Like South Park, like the first 10 seasons were dubbed, and then they stopped, and it was subtitled only for a long time, and now Netflix is picking it back up and dubbing it again, but they're changing all the voice actors, and that's pissing off the Japanese people because they want the old voice actors back. They did the same thing with The Simpsons. They're picking up the Japanese dub again, but they changed all the voice actors, and so all these like Japanese Simpsons purists, they want their original Japanese voice actors back.
The purists that yeah. And it's funny, yeah, Japanese Netflix, it's like funny, it's like they have The Simpsons on. Maybe if you get one of those VPN things, you can change your local country, but it's weird. It was like, oh, I'd like to watch The Simpsons on Netflix. We can't do that.
Not even we can do that.
I mean, I don't have Netflix anymore anyway. I wouldn't need to. I could just go on the pirate all TV shows I want website now, which there's a new trick to that I noticed that gets around all sorts of goofy shit. But yeah, let's see. In private chat, it's a
that's the Asobi Say link, the funny moments.
Here, yeah, let me put this. Okay, this and this, and I can link this in the chat. There, okay. Now I linked it in the chat.
Hopefully.
Is my chat message? Can it show up in the chat? I want to see my chat message. Oh, yes.
There it is.
Yes. Yes. Anyway.
It's a YouTube link. Is it up on YouTube?
Or is it just like a trailer?
No, it's just a compilation of some funny moments.
The best moments.
Okay.
So it's like 7 minutes of just like funny scenes.
What was the one the big comedy isekai show was Konosuba or something? And that one always looked funny.
Yeah,
too.
I couldn't get into it.
It looked like it had funny stuff, but yeah, like I never get that far with anime because usually the manga is like I hate being sort of an elitist snob about that, but the manga it's like one of the biggest problems I had with One Punch Man. One Punch Man's anime was so padded, and it wasn't bad. It was still funny, but the jokes were funnier in the manga because they were rapid fire and they didn't stretch or pad. They were just right there, and you read it as fast as you can read. Whereas in the anime, you have to wait for it to play out, and it's like. Oh yeah, that's right. They're making an anime on Delicious in Dungeon, and that one is funny too. But I'm like, I don't think I want to watch it though. I would rather read it because it's funnier, it's cuter, it's more pleasant in the comic because it's got this great tone to it that recapturing it, if they do that, which they could in the anime, I think would be pretty challenging to get it just right because then you got to have the right soundtrack, you have to have the right voice actors, and they understand that at least. But it's like I almost prefer to read it without voice actors, without music, that kind of thing. But then again, it depends on what it's like when it comes out, and if it increases readership of the actual comic, that's always good. Increases the visibility of it because Delicious in Dungeon is still pretty much one of my all-time favorites.
Oh yeah, Spy Family. You're talking about dubs and how you kind of would rather hear the voices in your head over whatever was actually chosen for a dub. Like Spy Family, I'm having that thing where I tried watching the English dub. They're uploading it at the same time as the Japanese one, and I don't like any of the voices. Anya's really bad, but I don't like Lloyd either. I don't really like any of the people they've cast. So I'm just
I don't really like any anime dub. Like it's not a problem of like the subtitles are more authentic. It's like I think a lot of American anime voice actors are just dog shit.
There seems to be like a stable of them, and they're just all the same people, and they're all
it's the same people.
So
there are some that are good.
Yeah, there is a reason for it, and it's it's an economical reason too.
Yeah.
So when it comes to voice acting, there's overlay and there's prelay. Prelay is when you record the audio first, the dialogue first, and then the animation is set to the dialogue. And overlay is dubbing, where the animation is done first, and then actors sit in an ADR booth and match their dialogue to the animation performance. So at some point, SAG or whoever controls this stuff determined that prelay is considered a creative work, and thus it qualifies for back ends and royalties. And overlay is considered a work of translation and does not qualify for royalties.
Yeah.
So SAG voice actors in Hollywood and Los Angeles, they get all the prelay work because that's just the luxury of being a SAG voice actor. Is you get all the sweet prelay work that comes with all the royalties. And so all the dubbing, all the overlay stuff is left to non-union voice actors outside of LA, which is mostly right now Funimation in Austin. There used to be 4Kids up in New York, but now it's pretty much just Funimation. And so their kind of overlay work is considered the crumbs. It doesn't pay a lot. It has no royalties. And it's usually done without spending a lot of money on the voice actors or getting very good voice actors. You're doing it for bottom dollar.
The cheapest of the cheap.
Yep, and that's why anime dubbing in the US has kind of always been bad and just never seems to get any better. And there are good ones out there. I really like the dub of K-On! I thought that had a really good English dub. Little Witch Academia, anything by Trigger gets really good English dubs. But
Cowboy
just about
Cowboy Bebop.
yeah, Cowboy Bebop, that's an older one, but that was a good one. But
Didn't the
any
creators
just about
say that he
anything
actually
done by
likes,
Funimation is garbage, you know.
American Spike.
Oh yeah, the Cowboy Bebop creator said he actually really liked the American dub.
I know
of
we
it.
mentioned that before.
Yeah, I mean, there are some really good ones out there. Kill la Kill has like a fantastic English dub, like it's perfect. But like anything like, you know, if it's like a shonen thing, like, you know, Dragon Ball Z or Naruto or something, you know, or like a Yu-Gi-Oh type anime where it's like kids fighting with playing cards, you know, it's gonna get a shit dub.
I love the dub for Yu-Gi-Oh though.
Yeah, but the voice guy for Yu-Gi-Oh, or I don't know what his actual name is. I never watched it, but
Is there
it's like some kind of super cigarette hag guy. There's like
a really gruff voice.
They got a legitimate biker.
Yeah,
a guy who's just got out of prison.
it was they hired someone from the Hells Angels and they paid him in beers. He has a great voice actually, but for the main guy of
Now for basically anime protagonist child.
Yeah, for a fucking isn't this guy supposed to be 5 years old? What's with his hair?
Like, I cast you into the shadow realm. It's like Krusty the Clown voicing him.
He's very Krusty the Clown.
They should hire Krusty the Crown to do anime voice.
Krusty the Crown.
Krusty the Crown.
So I wanted to watch Mandy. You know what we should or not
Mandy.
Becky.
Oh,
I was gonna say Mark has watched Mandy.
The Nick Cage
Mandy.
movie
We
where he
watched-
fights Guar.
Yeah.
I wanted to watch Paul Blart Mein Kampf.
Oh yeah, that's right, Becky.
No.
That's what Nick Mullen referred to Becky as Paul Blart.
It sounds incredible.
Yes, it sounds like a great, wonderful. Well, I saw The Fanatic. In fact, I was thinking about that when you were mentioning fans. It's like the concept, the word "fan" is like that's something that I've been trying to actually train myself out of for years. Is to even refer to myself as a fan of something when I know I don't mean it. When it's like, or referring to fans of something as really somebody who just appreciates or likes, or you know. A reader, a viewer, a watcher. But The Fanatic is a classic movie, clearly Fred Durst's best movie.
Fred Durst at the height of his talent.
I actually did kind of like it. It's not a great movie, actually, but it was watchable and stupid, but it has a follow through. It has a bizarre conclusion that's still kind of confusing.
Are we still talking about Mein Kampf?
Paul Blart Mein Kampf. That's never on the banned books list for some reason. When people like, we're selling the banned books, yeah, we're going there. It's like, where's Mein Kampf? Where's Culture of Critique? I don't know. I don't seem to see them next to your little your but
Next
for
to
some
Huck
reason
Finn or whatever.
Bone, that kind of thing, or To Kill a Mockingbird, which
Yeah.
it's like one place was like, I don't want to stock To Kill a Mockingbird. It's a little tough for kids. It's like, it's a banned book now. They're banning it. A lot of those are just bullshit. But somebody, Arshin Yongo says, someone in another Discord compared mangakas keeping their stories to Rob Liefeld as a negative comparison. What? That's there's the writing aspect, the writing side. It's definitely underappreciated. But in manga, here's the thing: in manga, it's appreciated, and there's still tropes in manga. And like we've done videos about this too a bunch of years ago, including I think our review of My Hero Academia was it was about the tropes, how you could still mix them up and have something fresh, how you could have something that's very cliched, but if you have one strong emotional connection to something, that people will pretty much overlook any amount of cliches or tropes or whatever. But there's definitely like strict formula in order to compete in manga. Is people have to stick to the formula, and there's like editorial meddling, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of aspects of that, but the writing, even for wanting to stick to formulas of like, you got to have the good guy, they're up against the evil world destroying bad guy, but the good guy has some sort of weird, he's got the nine-tailed fox spirit inside him that gives him the blood powers to have the superior genetics, that kind of thing. The that at least still has a better appreciation for the craft, as Master Shake once said, the craft of
Don't
writing.
talk to me about my craft.
But the writing in comics, it is because you can't have a comic without art too. But the thing is that something else we have been saying that's kind of a weird point on our part. I guess it's a weirdo kind of point on our part, is that you could just take a picture and put text on it, and it's a comic.
Yeah, without writing, you just don't. That's the thing is, you do need.
No matter what you do, you're writing anyway. Even if you hate writers, you're doing writing anyways.
Well, I've noticed that in the Japanese, like the manga reader community, they don't have this pissing contest about who's more important, the artist or the writer. Like that conversation just doesn't exist in Japan.
It's
kind of like understood they're both important. Whereas all I ever see in America is just this
pointless question. And that shows why American comics are really lost and clueless. And they have been for a long time, but there's not much coming out of that. It's American comics are very much stuck in this very clueless era of there's American comics are so clueless that they're arguing about which is more important, the art or the writing. There is nothing more missing the point than that.
It just continues to create the artificial divide between the creators, like you end up with a bunch of artists who, despise writers and vice versa, writers who despise artists, and then they just end up never collaborating or never getting along. I don't know. It's sowing discord for the sake of sowing discord, and nobody thrives in that kind of atmosphere.
It's also sort of destroying American competition. American competition is kneecapping itself because American writers who are like, I don't want to work with these, American comic artists who think they're rock stars when they're really just thin-skinned nerds and that kind of thing. So I'll just go look for an artist from some other country, and then they work with an artist from some other country. Their comic actually comes out on time, it exists, and gets released. Whereas the American artists will act like they're so much more important, they don't need anything, they don't need anyone, and that they're simply the best and all this shit. And then it just leads to like an embarrassing disaster that needs like a PR emergency damage control campaign and all this goofy shit. And that's why that's one of the main reasons that, and people don't really realize that these days either, is that American comics are suffering more. There's the industry, which is already shit. Basically, it's shit the bed and died. And as we've said years ago, is that the SJWs are just the vultures feeding on its corpse. And so that's been true. And then what comes next is just something equally as clueless and embarrassing that led to the same problems and is now, in fact, leading to newer problems. And it's something that we don't have a problem with, at least. But it's something that other people sort of walk into those problems and they're just unaware of it, and they don't seem to want to be aware of it too. So that but you know, the proof of it is in the outcomes. It's like saying, hey, this is going to happen, and then people are like, no, that's not going to happen, and then it happens.
That can't happen, it will never happen, then it happens.
Yeah, and then it happens. It's like, well, we told you. It's like, stop being smug about it, you know, that kind of thing too. Anyways, I think an hour. We could go for, you know, another 2 or 3 hours.
We could go for another 5 hours. We actually did a 5-hour stream once where I think we were playing World of Warcraft.
Yeah, we were just playing WoW, and it wasn't. It was just a stream. It was like, fuck it. And then I was like, let's never do that again. That's fucking stupid.
That was no fun.
But this for just 1 hour, lots of fun and enjoyable. I figured I would wrap
Did we
up.
cover all your topics?
we covered some. You know what? Let me look up. We could go for another 10 minutes. It can't hurt to go for another 10
Well,
minutes.
you hold on to Mark. I need to go and get something done. So,
Yeah, all right.
Mark,
Yeah,
you keep these boys entertained. And
Yeah, I
the
came in late, so I
workaholics.
got another 10 minutes to kill.
Yeah.
all right, see you guys.
Thanks for
See you, Tim.
coming on as
Later.
usual, Tim.
Boy.
Bye. Yeah, I was gonna say we should do this again sometime, but the important thing about this one is it's sort of the closeout for not the closeout. There's a few days left on Literally, but we got funding, which is all I really care about. But if you check out Literally, in fact, I will link to it in the chat.
Man,
right
I
now
hate
for
what
anyone.
YouTube has just done with their display, where now the description is like super short. You can barely find it below the video. And if you
Yeah,
don't put
I
your,
noticed that YouTube changed its whole front end again, and it looks like it's a mess. It's all cramped, and it's not
Yeah.
consistent from video to video.
I was like, where's the description? I couldn't find it. All I seen was like your name, and I was like, oh, there it is. And I have to click more to get the entire Indiegogo link.
Yeah.
And you're even using the short Indiegogo link, and it's still getting cut off by
I know, it's really
whatever
stupid.
YouTube's doing.
It's all
Yeah.
squished to the side too. It's like the side of the title or something. I was like, what the hell's going on with that? But I figured I wanted to mention Tim's not here, but he's not going to have any problem with me saying that Tim really loved Literally #1. Well, he mentioned that.
We've confirmed that is established now at this point.
But the thing is that, yeah, I think a lot of people don't know and aren't aware, or possibly intentionally blind themselves to that we're not just pals, but that you guys are fans of our comics.
Fans of us.
But that was one of the other things. I showed the little goofy little tiny screen cap of one of the other comics we were writing earlier, and I wanted to mention that. We don't have to do that with Tim here, but it was a comic that me and my brother actually wrote together. Like, we sat down on the chair, put the script and notes on the big screen, and like scrolled through it. And my brother was like, "Oh, what if this guy says this instead?" And it's like, "What if this happens?"
Yeah,
And,
we did like a proper back and forth, like really looking at what we had.
Yeah, and then I took all those. Now, like, I wrote down the notes, I made changes, and then I actually structured it into a script. So it's a new comic that we just wrote for fun. It's just a script.
That's how we write all of our comics is for fun.
But that's the thing, is that it's a comic about Korean 19-year-old kawaii schoolgirl or whatever.
Should we admit where we got the idea from?
Well, I kind of got it from the idea of Doctor Strange, traveling to the mystical or just all these other things.
From what I remember, it's like somebody wanted to do like a reverse on the trope of like the ancient mystical, like Kung Fu, where it's like the American goes to Japan or something.
Oh, you did a Mighty Whitey story, did you?
Whatever.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Basically, the way we had it is, a Korea girl from Korea land comes over to America to learn the mystical lost art of gunslinging, and it's like, Okay, so takes place in the near
Specifically, not
future.
even just gunslinging, but like being a redneck. She's learning.
Yes,
She's learning to be
she's going
basically
to learn
like,
how to whittle.
yeah.
So she's like a Westaboo, where instead of like
Yes.
Americans being obsessed with becoming samurai, she wants to become like a mountain person, an Appalachian.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
she's going to basically hang out with Crenshaw from Legend of Boggy Creek 2 and Legend
Yeah.
Continues, which that was actually a major basis for the story too. Is
Yeah.
like we want to have Crenshaw as the
Crenshaw is
sage
going to be,
guru.
Crenshaw is going to be the wise old. He's going to be Splinter. He's going to be
Yeah, he's
whoever
going
the
to be
mentor.
the splinter or the stick or whatever. But yeah, he'll be the teacher. But also he'll teach her about like huffing moonshine and being able to see into the other dimensions, which is actually just being drunk as shit. But yeah, the somebody in the chat asks here, is a 3-panel strip or a whole book? It's a whole book. And
Yeah,
again, it's
that's
just
going to
a
be.
script though.
Yeah, it's probably going to be. So far, we've got enough ideas that it could go on for a little while. But
Oh yeah, the ideas we planned out for this story alone is like it goes on is the first chapter is her trying to find the guy. He's not named Crenshaw in the book. I wanted to name him Crenshaw, but it's like we shouldn't.
no,
So
that would be stealing.
yeah,
That would
that
be
was
stealing.
Name him
but
Henshaw or something.
we wanted to the first issue is her doing that, and there's some goofy hijinks too, and establishing of the setting like it's sort of a cyberpunk 2077 future where
Yeah,
it's
we're
like
going to set it in the modern day, but it's like, you know what? We could set it whenever we want. So
yeah,
we set it in like the future.
yeah, so it's like yeah, not exactly near future, but maybe 50 100 years from now, where it's like sort of floating cars, but they actually kind of suck, but they'll work. So she rides a floating horse robot kind of thing.
It's her steel horse.
Yeah, and it's like a floating scooter kind of. It's like a moped that flies. Basically, it's not actually that cool, but at the same time, it's totally cool. But yeah. So she's trying to find this Crenshaw type, and then the second issue would be, which I haven't written yet, but all we need is that first issue to show like what we can do. And second issue is she goes through the training and sort of the mysterious Orient tropes, reversed or inverted or whatever. And he basically like Crenshaw is like a former engineer who is like he makes stuff, build stuff, understand how it works, but then also Southern, so he just likes guns a lot. And he'll have a mysterious backstory that involved why he went into hiding and all this stuff, and it will involve the big, Amazon Global Corp, whatever, that wants to give everyone vaccines and turn them sterile and something like that. But the he'll like train her on the practical things, like if you shoot a bullet or drop a bullet from your hand, it will hit the ground at the same time. It's just a matter of how much distance it's gained. It's a question of physics, that kind of thing. And he can teach her that while also teaching her how to play the banjo or whatever the fuck. But
Teaching her how to fix a car, stuff
yeah,
like that.
yeah, maybe something like, or well, how to tune up her motor steed, something like that. But and the first issue actually goes into some of that, where it's like she has to go off the grid. Like the American South is just this giant dead zone where the Google Maps don't work anymore, and it's just blank. And it's like, oh yeah, and you got to turn off your smartwatch. That was actually in the screen cap, is like, make sure you turn off your smartwatch, because then he doesn't want anyone bringing tracking devices to him and that kind of thing. And then from there we were like, okay, so she's going to get into trouble. It's going to be kind of a Western thing. So then she's going to be like hanging off of floating trains and stuff while trying to steal cargo from them that she can deliver to the resistance or whoever, and to curry favor, and like all these adventures that we were coming up with her to potentially have, sort of like a Payday the Heist kind of adventures, but in like futuristic settings. And it's like, oh, that would be good for a video game too, but we just focus on the comic story, and like all sorts of adventures can happen, and then it's like she's going to avenge her parents, so there's a direction for her to go to, that kind of stuff. That's in a way still tongue in cheek. So it's like there's this story structure, but it can also be goofy, and so that's a nice thing. That's always a nice thing to have in comics, is to have a solid story structure, but not taken so seriously that you have to be like, okay, how does she get across the street? Whether she's looking at a busy street, okay, we got to show her getting across the street. So she waits for the crosswalk, like it's like, who cares?
Yeah.
We would just like have her teleport through the
Like, when
plot.
does she gas up her motor steed?
Yeah,
Like, oh no,
exactly.
she did it off panel. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, how does she fuel it? What kind of fuel does it take? We don't have to think about that for now, at least. And the thing is, though, you leave that open, you can think about it later too, and
Yeah.
be like, oh, they use like the carbon fibers that are like the artificially created like muscle tissue and that kind of thing. This, maybe she gets her arm chopped off and she has to get like some kind of cool synthetic robo arm
Maybe
for all
she
the
already
people who are like,
has
oh,
that.
I love transhumanism, that kind of thing. But
It's so cyberpunk. It's steampunk. She's
yeah,
a steampunk.
it'll be steampunk too. Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about it's not actually, but the yeah, that's just one idea that we came up with. I wrote the first chapter of that, so the like first book basically ready to go if we just had artists and funding. But I'm working on literally. My brother's working on another comic called Not Gods at All. That's um, in the works, maybe not exactly halfway through, but a lot of the pages are planned out already.
A lot of the work is like complete.
The pages are sort of drawn and sketched out, and would just need like some coloring in some cases, because a lot of it's already looking good. It's just that first step in getting there, and so it'd be my brother's first book, which is always kind of an important first step, and then like there's still a bunch of other scripts that I have going, but then literally chapter 2 though, the funding is going right now. We got the funding goal at least, so we'll be able to pay the artists. That's always good. The thing is that it's just the funding goal, so the more that we get for the campaign, the less I have to pay out of pocket, essentially. And we do have other people who are helping us out in general, but it's good to have the campaign going to help cover the cost. That's really that's what crowdfunding is always supposed to be about, is covering the cost of the art. A lot of people use it for different things, of course, that are morally incorrect, but the important thing is that is the comic. And let's see if
Mom says I have to.
it immediately starts playing when I hit the button. But I figured I would end the stream with showing the trailer for the first comic, and also to sort of direct towards the last comic. So if you want to stay in here and watch, I'm sure you've seen this before, Mark, but I figured I would play this and then we would end the stream.
All right.
Do you have any other concluding ideas or plugs or something? Because Common America 5 certainly blown up, and 6 is going to come out soon, or it's almost done, isn't it?
Yep. So Tim says he's 14 pages away from finishing Common America 6, but the next book coming out in June is going to be Black Ops 5, which is Black Ops X Common America X Soul Finder. That one he finished a long time ago, so that one's going to be ready to go for our next pre-order.
Already in the barrel. Shit.
Yep.
Shit. That's yeah. See, that's the thing. That's another great thing to look forward to and to promise is Common America not just having more books, but now it's got crossovers and extra, side things that are just ready. And, so it's always good to have that, to know that when you back a comic on crowdfunding, that's already done. I would like to do that, but again, we're doing more of a fundraiser. So we're looking to get money to actually.
Well, I mean, it took us a few campaigns to be able to do that. I mean, we had the book when we first started. We did Black Ops 2, and we had that book done in advance. but we didn't make any money off of Black Ops 2.
Mhm.
Basically, all that money kind of went retroactive into paying for the money that we'd spent on that book, and then also paying for the next book that we were doing. And it took a few campaigns before we started, being able to take all the money we were making and putting them into the next ones that we could afford to make the next one in advance, et cetera, and be like 3 books
Mhm.
ahead like we are now. So, I mean, when you
Yeah, I
start out,
remember.
yeah, you have to do the crowdfunding thing as like investment capital,
Yeah.
but eventually you build up enough and you put enough towards the next campaign that you get ahead.
Yeah, that's always cool. I remember yeah, back then we would go on the streams with you guys, and Tim and you would tell us that basically all the overhead covers the entire cost. Like you'd have no money to take home after the campaign. And I was wondering how much of that might have changed, but it's also like how much
Uh,
should we even know about it?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is like Tim and I still have our day jobs,
Hmm.
so when we have been able to take home more money individually for ourselves than back when we did Common America 1, obviously. But I mean we also like we just showed off the Common America resin maquettes. Those
Hmm.
were expensive to get 200 of those. So that's money that instead of going to us as profit, we're putting towards these knickknacks like the resin maquettes, the acrylic standees, the soundtrack album, the mouse pads, things like that, the Badger plushies that we just showed off. All that costs money, and all that's money that we take from our previous campaign and use to fund these new items in the next one,
Hmm.
instead of just lining our pockets with it. And that's
Yeah,
helping us grow the idea of Common America and helping it reach more people.
yeah, that's the thing is I was hoping like ideally it's building to like a critical mass where it's just going to keep exploding. I mean, who knows if it will, but the comics will still exist. That's for sure, definitely. And it's considering that two of them are almost already completely finished. Uh, that's even if something were to happen tomorrow, people could be like, well, okay, there's still one more book going to come out, and
Oh yeah, I
something.
mean, Common America is going to keep going until we're done telling our story. I mean,
Mhm.
even if we don't do, if everybody decided, like, if enough people decided they didn't care about Common America tomorrow, we'd still have enough readers left over who are invested in it until the end to keep doing just the comic. Hopefully that's not going to happen. Hopefully, we'll be able to keep growing and doing more fun things and
Mhm.
more things like the maquettes and things like the soundtrack album, stuff like that. But even if it just goes back to the just being the comic, I mean, we've got enough readers that we'll be able to tell our complete story.
Yeah, it's a really solid audience now, and it is still growing too, which is really good. And it's sizable enough that some people have definitely had to have second thoughts about how they treated you. We've noticed, and been having a sick larf about for a while too. But yeah, the growth of that's been continuing, and someone was asking is like, is there sort of a planned end to Common America where it's like going to go for another few arcs and then be considered concluded, or is it just going to go for as long as it possibly can?
Well, so we put out 2 Common America volumes a year, not counting Black Ops, which is part of the same universe, but it's not a Common America book. And right now, like our omnibus collections are every 4 volumes. So every 2 years we put out a new omnibus. That's not necessarily saying all of our arcs are going to be precisely 4 volumes. Some may be longer, etc., and like broken up into 2 omnibus collections. But I mean, at 2 volumes a year, it's going to take us a while to get through all the story that we have planned. But we actually, yeah, we do have a very specific endpoint in mind. We know exactly how we want the story to end, like basically right down to the panel. We have all of our story arcs, the trajectories plotted out. They're not immutable. They're malleable. They can be changed as we go along. As we have new ideas or as we decide what's working and what isn't. But we basically know if every omnibus is 4 volumes, we basically already know like what the next 12 volumes, the next 3 omnibus collections, what those are going to be plotted out to be, and then it's going to continue on from there. So it's probably a decade or more of Common America
That's
books.
good. That's definitely good. And it's also that points again to the real strength of writing is being able to plan ahead. That's a writer's skill is saying, okay, this is what I want to happen in this book, but then what could happen in the next book because of what I just did here. So that's really that's important, and that's another thing that a lot of comic writers don't seem to even consider or think about, which is,
Honestly, a
that's
lot of
important.
the best ideas that Tim and I come up with is when we're doing road trips to conventions, like in Texas. This is like a 7-hour drive from where we are in Arkansas to where we need to be in Texas to do a lot of our cons, and so we just spend that time workshopping our stories and coming up with ideas. And a lot of the stuff is almost it's spur of the moment, like, oh hey, what if these dots connected this way, and then that ends up being a really important thing, and it can maybe change a certain trajectory in our storylines. But because we have the time to basically workshop it out and talk about it that much, we can come up with all these better ideas.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's as far as like the writing goes, we plot them out pretty meticulously. We don't consider it 100% sacred. Like when we come up with like a first draft of our storyline, like we can never change it. We sometimes we listen to feedback and then we go back and we reevaluate what we have plotted out, and we see a better way we can tell our story, a better route from getting to A to B. And we did that with like Common America 6, where we got the feedback from Common America 5, and we were decided like, hey, maybe we could do this differently in Common America 6. Tim hadn't gotten to drawing those pages yet, and I was like, hey Tim, can I do another pass on these pages? And so I did another pass on those pages, got those to him, and he's like, oh yeah, this is much better. So we were able to improve it on the fly before Tim had gotten to drawing it yet.
Yeah, extra consideration for that was, that reminds me of one of the guys from Monty Python talked about how if you have a joke, like if you try to just put some extra work into that joke, you can make it better like almost every time. So it's just a matter of putting some extra thought into something, and that's again, yeah, do you have like a notepad or something when you're going back and forth and it's like, oh, that's a good idea, I better write this down or something?
Yeah, so I do. The hard thing is I do forget. If we come up with an idea and then I don't do something to make me remember it, I will forget it. So
Mhm.
what I do is I have my phone on me and I have the Gmail app on my phone, and so I will send myself emails whenever I have an idea. It'll just be like in shorthand. It'll trigger my memory completely when I go and I read the email, but I have to like send myself like a bunch of little quick short emails whenever I come up with an idea, or else
Mhm.
it will like flee my brain.
Yeah, I think
Um,
I've thought of doing that myself, except like I use pretty much always at my computer, so it's like a text a text file, a text pad file on just in my writing folder. It's like, let me pop that up. It's got to be something that can open quick. My brother was telling me about this earlier. Is like even waiting for MS Word or like Open Office to open. It's like, no, that takes too long. Even 5 seconds waiting for the file to open is too long. You
Yeah,
just
no,
don't want to
I have
forget.
to. I work. I mean, when I'm at like at home or I'm at work and I have an idea, then yeah, I have like a notepad and a pencil and I'll write it down, I'll scribble it down, then I'll take it home and I'll put it into like a Word
Mhm.
document where I keep all my notes. But I have the same thing where I just like I gotta get it. If it's in my brain, I gotta get it down on paper somewhere, or else
Mhm.
I'm gonna lose it.
That is a big advantage of, modern smartphones and stuff, is basically the best way to sort of take notes for yourself, and it's such a standard that everyone has, which is it's just kind of a good thing in a way. There was another thing I was also thinking earlier is the modern era of being able to connect to people in other countries, like being able to find an artist that's not just some American artist with the very weirdly limited sensibilities sometimes, because I've seen a lot of American artists who definitely have a lot of influences. I mean, Tim is a great example, of course, but yeah, and I think that's how things are going and changing, but it's also showing that it's like, it's about having to adapt. You've got to adapt, or else you're gonna just be.
Well, I mean, the truth is, it's easier now to be an independent comic creator, independent
Mhm.
author, independent musician, independent anything. It's easier to
Yeah.
do it now than it ever has been in any of human history. So, I mean, if you just think of like what Eastman and Laird had to go through to publish a black and white comic in the 80s, we don't have to work, a fraction as hard as they did to get our book out and to give it a wider audience. But we're
Mhm.
also competing with like 10,000 more people than they
Yeah.
ever had to go against.
Who
So
can
getting your
also,
stuff
yeah,
seen
they
is
can
in a
do it
way
just as
harder.
easily. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a good thing ultimately. The digital age of comics is ultimately the best thing because of that. It's, I mean, lowered the barrier of entry is, can have negative aspects, of course, but it's also just ultimately a good thing because it's,
Yeah, I think it's
um,
more positive than negative.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we're able to
generally.
connect with artists all over the world, in the Philippines and Japan and
Mhm.
Chile. Like we've had artists in Korea and the UK like collaborate with us, and we never would have been able to do that if we didn't have the internet. We're just landlocked
Yeah,
into our hometown. How do you network then? I mean,
exactly.
our primary digital customers on Amazon are Japanese. We sell a
Mhm.
lot of our digital copies to Japan. Obviously, that's a market we never would have had available to us if we hadn't taken advantage of those
Yeah, didn't
opportunities.
even really expect that. That one surprised me too,
And
but it makes so much sense.
they have to use Google Lens to read our book. They want to read it, which is the amazing thing. Is I mean, they're enjoying Tim's artwork, but they also want to read the story, and so they're
Mhm.
using the resources they have to do their own translations just so they can read it. They're very interested, which is why we're working on official Japanese translations of our books now because
Oh
we
yeah,
know that
the
there's an
actual
interest.
This
manga
would be
release
normal
too.
for indies like 40 years ago. It wouldn't,
Mhm.
the technology would not allow for this.
It would have to be sold in porn shops under the table or whatever too back then.
Yeah.
Like was it shit, I forgot which ones that Crumb published his stuff in, but or Zap Comics, stuff like that.
Oh
Um,
yeah, right. Where it was I can't. Yeah, there's a word for him. I can't recall, but yeah,
well,
like the
there's the
stuff like
underground comics
Von
within that.
Baudet used to do back then, like the '70s, like Cheech Wizard, those sorts of things. Was underground comics, and yeah, like R. Crumb used to do for Fritz the Cat or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and they would be sold like behind underneath the counter or something at
Prom is a really interesting movie.
yeah, the movie, but yeah, that was fantastic. In fact, that reminds me, that movie got mentioned recently in a recent episode of Fake Andy Warhol's show on YouTube, which is a podcast that has like almost no subscribers, but it's one of the best podcasts I've ever listened. It's not a comedic one, but it's really interesting. In fact, I almost want to listen to him again because like maybe 2 hours long of just this guy who I know talking. And he wrote a book about, it was called Warhol Chris Chan, and it's about like comparisons between Andy Warhol and Chris Chan. And a lot of people read it, and it's on Amazon, and it's got a lot of good reviews. And I want to read it myself, but I'm right now, the my toilet book right now is Dispatches by Michael Herr, and I just got to the page with the real life story of the helicopter door gunner, who's like, "You should do a story on me," and they're like, "Why?" And says, "Because I'm so fucking good." It's the exact scene out of Full Metal Jacket, but it's the real life story of it. Um, and it's short. It's like just one paragraph of when they talk to this guy. He's like, "I shot a bunch of caribou." He said, apparently he said caribou. I don't even know if they have caribou in Vietnam, but it's a great
My
book. It's a
brother's actually
fantastic book.
working with. I was just thinking, my brother's working with an artist that is one
In
artist is in
Brazil.
South America, the other is in Europe, and it's like again, technology is
Well, that
allowing
that
that.
actually leads me to, somebody said in the chat, Doodle Squatch here said Villains of the Snow Sea #3 coming out this year. It was geared to, but it's probably not going to. Arc Soleil kind of disappeared again, and not too surprising. If I had a bunch of money to hire another artist, I'd be able to get it out this year. But
Yeah, just imagine if you had $1 million.
yeah, something like that, or even a tenth of that, I would be able to get a lot of comics out, and they would actually be released. There would not be any excuses or whatever. There would just be, I would just be able to hire whatever artist.
Yeah,
And I was working with Arcslay because
just
he
imagine that
didn't even
idea.
want to be paid.
Imagine getting $1 million up front to make
$1 million.
a single comic and then still not making it.
And not even working on it.
Yeah, just
I mean, if someone just handed me $1 million right now and said, "Mark, quit your job and make comics," I'd be like, "Okay," and then you have some comics,
I would,
ready in a
I would
month.
have, yeah, I
Because
would have comics
what's to
done
stop me if I
probably.
had $1 million
Yeah,
and all the
you
free time
wouldn't.
I'd need to get the comics
You're
done?
saying you wouldn't have to wait 2 years for the comic and it
Yeah,
only
all right.
being 40 pages, even though you promised 80 pages.
I wouldn't have to pretend that people are trying to kill my family in order to sell my comics either. Um,
Well, I don't like
We're-
streaming on YouTube all that much. I like talking to you guys, and I like doing the Kinonomicon with Hot Dog and Nasser. But that's pretty much the only time I ever stream. I hardly ever do it. It's just not my thing. So
Yeah,
I have
streaming is
plenty of
just like
time.
a-
Yeah.
It's a
It's only
nice little
fun
way
when
to
it's
just chat.
when we're making it fun.
Yeah. It's just a
Yeah,
nice
what-
little way to chat, but once you're trying to turn it into your life, there's clearly an indicator of something wrong with your life in that case. But
Yeah,
the
I stream to have fun. I mean, I've heard that
Yeah.
the streams I'm on are boring because there's no drama. It's just us chatting about things we like. But,
Yeah.
that's just fun to me, is to talk about the things that I like to talk about. Talk about video games with you or horror movies with Hot Dog and Nasser. And that's fun
You
for
were
me.
just
If I
on
had to
that
go on
today
and
too,
do a
right?
stream like every single day, and every day
Yeah.
that stream had to be like 5 hours long, and it had to be about bullshit I didn't care
Yeah,
about
and you
or
can
stuff that
tell
would make me
people aren't
angry.
having fun.
Ugh.
Like on those long
Yeah.
streams, you can tell people are pretending to have fun, but you can like hear how like in it's weird when you can hear in somebody's voice how hollow and empty, like they're just not enjoying themselves. It's just kind of sad, kind of depressing, but for them anyways, I guess.
Yeah.
Um so Common America 5 is again such a big hit that people were just antsy. They were actually just uh, as we said with Tim at the beginning, people were chewing their fingers off like Werner Herzog at the beginning, or in Jack Reacher.
They're showing you that they're rare.
Yes, show me your rare.
Yeah, no, I mean, we get people all the time who contact us on social media, on Twitter, and show us photos of when they get their books, whenever they get their box. But this time they were telling us they got their tracking numbers. That's how anxious they were to get Common America
Yeah, they're
5.
so excited. They're like, "I got my tracking number!" Yes. And one of the guys that hangs around, that Rob Kuro guy, he's really pumped up. And apparently, like, he's not even like a comics fan. He buys the only comics he really buys are your guys' stuff, and I think he bought ours too, which is very cool.
That kind of
And
true. For
he's
us,
onto
too.
something with that one. of
We
course.
don't. I tried getting into. That's the thing is we're the primo
But we still read comics
medium,
too.
or we're the people who should be into comics, and I'm just not. And we tried. I tried to get into.
Yeah, we
comics.
still read some comics, but again, I watch movies, I read books, and not like yes, I'm a book reader. It's like I'll read a book if it's interesting, and sometimes
Well, for
like,
me,
yeah,
comics are like a media. It's the most untapped medium.
comics still have a lot they can do that they're barely doing or not doing at all, and again,
I was
especially in the
talking to-
modern era.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to Tim about this. I mean, comics are a medium, and that means that there's certain things that you can do with a comic that you can't do with a cartoon, you can't do with a movie, you can't do with a novel, etc.
One Punch Man,
And-
again, the One Punch Man manga just does comedy better. It does pacing and the speed of the delivery better.
One
than
Punch
the
Man is
anime
kind of
does.
like my go-to example because it started as a webcomic. The guy couldn't really draw. He could draw just enough so that
He could draw enough,
see
yeah.
what was going on.
which is all you need.
And he just really wanted to be able to make this comic.
If anything, that points to art not being as important as the writing, because look at One Punch Man. The original art is extremely rudimentary, but it's the writing that turned it into this international, worldwide. It's like a household name, just about, because people see it all over the
Yeah,
place.
it went from just a web comic to like a comic with a serious artist, and then from there into an anime, and then that anime kind of just exploded in popularity.
You know what else is funny too is we had been saying this, pointing this out for well, not just years, but like decades. And it's funny how many people like actually got mad. It's weird how weirdly thin-skinned people get just about like a statement. It's like, dude, fucking webcomics are bullshit. And it's like, okay, I guess. I don't know what you're pissed off about, but like they get mad about it. And then something like this comes along that, of course, continues to prove us right.
We have a blog called Shitty Webcomics. I mean, that's still kind of
And
where
we
we're-
would focus on good. We would regularly be like, here's some comics that are good. We had a page specifically for like, here's comics that we say are good. And
I
some
think
of them were
people,
even like
people
crazy
started
SJW type.
following us because they were expecting like the drama. They're expecting us to just savage bad webcomics all the time. And eventually it became like, okay, we've done that. now what's next? And we start talking about what we liked, what was good, how to do it right, kind of like a Red Letter Media. They kind of showed us the way to do that. It's like, it's not just about what you hate, it's about what you really like.
Yes,
the
and
thing
that's
is that
the sad thing though is that negativity gets more views than positivity.
yeah,
But if you that only matters to you if you're obsessed with your metrics. If you look like, oh, this video didn't get as many hits as the other video, I need to do more of what the other video is doing. If you don't care about that sort of thing, then you can do videos at whatever pace you
I
want to do
think
them at.
that
You
can
can
springboard you because, I mean,
yeah.
again, Red Letter Media, they're also one of the things that they do that's really popular and successful is their TNG like top 10
mhm.
picks. And it's like, yeah, those are great. I love
Those are
listening
great
to
video.
those.
I
I've listened to them
rewatch those
many
regularly.
times. It's just them talking about how much they love TNG. And it's like, oh, this is so great. Just having a goof, riffing on it, covering their
But
favorite
they
episodes
also
from
talk
the
about
first
like
season.
they talk about like here's I forgot what I think the game like they talk about okay here's the inciting factor here's like a little bit of foreshadowing they throw in this she throws away his comm badge notice she cuts off communication so that she can sort of hook him
It's
on the game and
it's
that kind of
played
thing.
as a goof. It's
They
played
play out
lighthearted.
point by point how the story does it right and correct instead of just being like oh this sucks this is stupid like again yeah people who just stream all the time about negativity and how pissed off they are and how this thing sucks and how you should be mad. Those people definitely have something wrong with them, of course. But I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
you
it's
shouldn't
like
need me to tell you that.
Cinemassacre, like James Rolfe's channel. Like
Yeah,
his most popular videos, obviously, are his angry video game nerd ones, where I mean, I know those are done as a goof. He's not serious,
yeah,
but
he's
he's
a
like,
character.
yeah, it's a character, but he is playing bad games and he is making fun of the bad games. But those aren't my favorite videos that he does. My favorite
Mhm.
videos that he does is when it's like Rolf out of character and he's just going into like Filmsburg mode and he's just talking about movies he really loves and doing like deep dives on
Yeah,
them.
like
I
his
like those
review of
videos more.
American Movie, I think, where he's like, I threw in references to American Movie in a bunch of my previous videos too. And you could tell even the angry video game nerd ones are clearly tongue in cheek. Like he's not
Yeah, he's
actually
having a laugh. He's
angry.
just
He's
he's
not.
not
He's
really
he's
yeah,
not
he's not
actually
really angry
getting
and
Bugs
shitting all over the
Bunny.
video game.
The joke is the about being angry. It's not that he's angry. It's the joke is being
Yeah,
angry. It's
but
like
yeah,
look at
in
somebody get
particular, it's
mad
like
at video
why
games.
am I getting angry over playing a video game? I'm supposed to be having fun. All he's doing is getting angry because a lot of those old NES games are kind of punishing, but he's not
Yeah.
also actually dragging Bugs Bunny out of the ether to beat him up.
into his
Yeah,
real life videos.
but I
That's
like his chill videos, like his old Monster Madness ones that he used to do, where he just reviewed. Like he did this one where he reviewed like every film adaptation of Dracula, and he compared them to the novel, and to decide which one had the most scenes from the novel and was therefore the most accurate adaptation. And it was a really good video essay, and that was just him talking about something he was really passionate about. And it doesn't have like a tenth of the views of one of his angry video game nerd videos, but he probably put more work into that Dracula video than any of his other ones. He just did that out of the passion for it, even if
Mhm.
it doesn't get as many videos. And I just think if people have a YouTube channel and they're not relying on that YouTube channel ad revenue, and metrics to pay their bills, if they're just doing a YouTube channel for fun, then they should focus more on the videos that are fun to do than the ones that are just angry and bitter and get them the most views.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole YouTube thing is really a game. People who take it seriously
YouTube is a
are
terrible
gonna
platform
screw
now.
it.
YouTube is kind of like falling apart as an effective platform
Well,
for
no,
like
it hasn't been a good platform
content.
for a long time, really.
Yeah,
But
no.
especially if you think you're going to take it seriously, it's really kind of stupid. Well, not kind of stupid. It's extremely stupid, actually. But but yeah, I mean, people take it seriously because they're at a certain point. It's like, Jim Tuner says outrage farming is all about the money. Once you are doing it, you're stuck doing it because you can't really do anything
We
else.
were
If
just
you
actually
try to
covering
change
that.
even a little bit,
We
you're
did like
dead.
a video series about somebody specifically whose like entire career is predicated on outrage marketing, and he had to switch gears because he had basically nearly sabotaged his entire life over the outrage marketing of like comic books. And
Well, there's a lot of people
SJWs.
who are like that too. And yeah, comic books and there's also like when the topics dry up, you have to basically pretend to care about something new that will get you attention.
I can't
Just
I
shit like
can't keep
that.
complaining about Squirrel Girl for 5, 6, 7 years, however long it's
Or
been. It's
Heather
like
Rantos,
it's
like
the
some
book
people are
shit.
making.
We're
Yeah.
done. It's I'm done talking
Yeah,
about it.
I've seen some people are still making videos. Well, apparently, your boy Zach is still making videos about Heather Antos this week, and it's like I wouldn't have even remembered she ever existed otherwise.
Yeah, I had
I don't see
moved
the
on.
point,
I was done with that,
but
and
it's
I still
because
am.
it's about trying to drum up the outrage marketing and recreate something that gave you a lot of clicks a few years back, something like that. But
Yeah,
and
I
Red
just
Letter
stopped
Media
reading
would
those
probably get more
books.
attention too. Red Letter Media, they sort of built their channel because they did negative reviews, but they do positive reviews of things too, and most likely didn't grow as fast or as much because of that. Like they only have about 1 million. I know it's more than 1 million, but it's like they could probably have tens of millions or some shit if it was all about like, oh, look how much this sucks, and something like
They could
that.
be doing like PewDiePie numbers, basically, is what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I'm glad that they don't, because I'm glad that they just talk about stuff that they like. I watch all of their videos, even best of the worst are the videos that I want to watch the least, and some of those are still their best. In fact, the one about Stone Cold, I was so fucking excited to see them review Stone Cold because I had seen that movie, and it's like, oh, that's actually a good movie. That's not bad at all. And they watched it, and sure enough, they came to the same conclusion. Of course, why wouldn't they? But yeah, that's like again, Red Letter Media. Just every
Yeah, I mean,
video there could
if
at
all
least
Red
watch
Letter
it.
Media ever posted was just vacuous negativity, it would be Cinema Sins,
Yeah.
which is like the worst popular critical
You know what?
film
Yeah,
review
I don't. I
channel.
didn't subscribe. I don't subscribe to that anymore. But to be honest, even that is at least a little bit tongue in cheek.
Yeah, I
But
think it's just that the joke got old
yeah,
fast.
yes,
Like within
absolutely.
like 6 months, I was already sick and tired of the joke and unsubscribed. But
Like
people take it
I kind of
seriously
wish it
though, is the
became
thing.
more
Is
of a
they think
joke.
it's good criticism. It's
Yeah.
Cinema Sins, and it's not.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing of like even people who take it seriously as criticism because it's clearly supposed to be nitpicking, but it's also like one, it's not serious criticism. Two, other people who think it is are fucking kind of out of their minds. But
Yeah.
three, if the guy thinks he's a serious critic, which I know he wanted to do that, and I don't think it went anywhere. It's like, well, clearly, I think even he is like, I don't want to do Cinema Sins forever, but he's kind of stuck doing it forever now.
Yeah, like the nostalgia critic when he tried to, quit and do a demo reel and make his
Oh
own short
God,
films, and that
I kind of
lasted
feel
like
yeah, I
a
kind of
month.
feel bad for him because some of his videos are still good until he does a skit, and it's
I
like, oh
know
God, no,
that's why I had to stop. Is like when he
Mhm.
starts doing a skit with his other like friends as actors, it's just like
Yeah,
no. I do feel
or
kind of bad for him.
I don't even know if they're
Not too
friends.
much
I
because
think they're
he's
just
got a lot of money,
actors.
but
Yeah, they're just fine. Well, like the old ones where you would have other people from Channel Awesome come in, and it's like, don't do that because then you get Linkara explaining to you why a back credit card is actually not a bad idea. And it's like, you should just shoot him in real life.
when it's
Shoot
just like
people.
him doing shtick by himself, those old ones, those are fun. But almost like when he
His
got
new
too
ones aren't bad.
ambitious, yeah.
I've seen some new Nostalgia Critic reviews. Like he's done some of Stephen King movies that are like, what was the one from the 90s that he reviewed? And he was like so enthusiastic about how much he liked it, but it was like just overlooked dog shit and everyone hated it. It was like early 90s Stephen King movie.
Oh, there's a
Um,
million Stephen King movies in the
yeah,
90s. It's a
but it
dilemma.
was very 90s too, and it was just like he actually did skits in that were kind of funny because they were about the movie in which like the two people would come in, watch the movie with him, and it would be some regular boring part, and they would be like, yeah, whatever, I don't care. They would leave, then something complete like five insane things would happen all in the time span of like 1 minute in the movie, and Linkara, nostalgia critic would start screaming he would do the nostalgia critic scream, and then they come back and it's like, what? And then it's the movie's back to being like boring. And it's like, no, the crazy things were just happening.
I think
Um,
he did a video about it some years ago. I think he kind of got fucked over though, like a lot of the movie review critics did, is that he got big enough to be noticed by the studios, and so
Yeah.
they started like just sending takedown
flagging.
notices to every one of his reviews because he couldn't use
Mhm.
clips anymore. So he has to do the skits because he can't fill his reviews with clips now.
Yeah, which is painful. It's painful for me. I understand that, but it's also like, where's the right arrow key on my keyboard?
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, though, is that James Rolfe does skits and sometimes has other people in his Angry Video Game Nerd
Mhm.
videos, and they're not as cringy and unbearable as a Nostalgia Critic
Yeah,
skit.
exactly.
It's clearly there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do
I
it.
think
And
Nostalgia Critic's trying to do it like it's
yeah.
a Saturday Night Live skit or something.
Yeah, and that's part of
Yeah,
what sucks about it because they go on too long and stuff.
they do.
Jim Tuner mentions Cocaine Field 1990s Stephen King Maximum Overdrive was
Oh,
his
that's the
greatest
best.
film.
I love it.
That was 80s though. That was like
Yeah, that was 80s. That was like 87.
yeah, but
I,
it also Who Made Who, one of the best AC/DC songs. That was back when a band could make already good band could make a great song for a movie. You can't even do that anymore.
oh man, Lemmy and Ozzy doing Hellraiser for Hellraiser 3. That's like one of their
Yeah.
best fucking songs.
Yeah.
And they just did it for Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth, just like pulled it out of their ass. It's great.
And isn't that song about touring? It's just touring on the road, isn't it?
Yeah,
Hellraiser, because
I
it's
mean,
the
it's not
first
even
track
about
on No More Tears.
yeah, it's not even about Pinhead and Cinnabites and puzzle
Mhm.
boxes. It's got nothing to do with the movie Hellraiser. It just has the word Hellraiser in it, but
Which
they
is the
wrote
best
it for
way.
the movie.
If you're
Yeah.
gonna make a song about a song for a movie, you don't want to make your song about tornadoes.
Yeah, yeah, about tornado. I mean,
Just
to
don't
be
mention
honest, though,
tornado.
I hate Van Hagar, but that song is not bad. Although it was almost about tornadoes. There's that famous story of
Supposedly, it was
Yeah.
going. They told Sammy,
yeah. They
"Don't
told
write
Sammy, whatever
anything
you do,
about
for the love
tornadoes."
of God, do not make the song about tornadoes. And like 5 minutes of cocaine later, Sammy comes out of his room. He's like, "Hey guys, I finished the song. It's about tornadoes." And,
And so apparently Eddie had to rewrite the whole
yes,
song.
Eddie rewrote it to being about beating your wife and not telling her or whatever the fuck. Who cares?
Not telling her that you did it.
Why
No,
don't you tell her? That's
how-
the most tragic part of all about beating your
How
wife.
could
is that
you
you don't
not
tell her.
know? So yeah, I don't like Sammy Hagar that much.
Yeah, the last song, I think the last good song that was made just for a movie, maybe. There's probably lots of other
Men in
examples,
Black.
actually. Like the James Bond movies are good, but
Oh yeah,
Degeneration for Airheads by Ozzy. That song is fucking excellent, and that movie is so good. So
Airheads is
overlooked now
classic.
too.
Well, I mean,
Airheads, yeah,
Airheads is
but-
one of those like classic Gen X early '90s movies. It's like
Yeah.
kind of like right there in that same like generation as like Clerks, I guess. It's
Yeah,
a different
the
kind of
Clerk-
movie. Maybe it's more like Mallrats in terms of its tone, but
yeah,
it's like
although you
that
know what,
very
I like
specific
Mallrats too.
time.
I always did like Mallrats.
I like
Yeah.
Mallrats, but everyone hates Mallrats because it was
'Cause it
not
wasn't
as good as
Clerks.
I guess.
Yeah, I
Clerks
mean
was
they're
about
almost
something
totally
mad.
different kinds of movies.
Yeah.
It's like comparing like Peter Jackson did Dead Alive, and he also
Yeah.
did Lord of the Rings. They're very different movies.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's nothing wrong
He
with
also
them.
did The Frighteners, which was different
Oh,
from
yeah.
both of those and massive. I loved The Frighteners, watching it on Stars back in the 90s. That was a great movie.
Frighteners is great. It's kind of like an anything goes movie. It's
Yeah.
just it's crazy. It's like
Yeah,
we're gonna
there's
have
no
Ghost and
rules.
R. Lee Ermey and
Yeah.
just
Arlie
whatever you
Ermey,
want in the movie.
He breaks the rules of the movie by just summoning machine guns that work on the ghost. They work on the Grim Reaper. And it's like, so why didn't anyone else do that? But it's like, who cares? Who gives a shit?
And then Marty McFly picks up one of the M60s.
Yeah, it works. It actually does something. It's like,
How does
it
this
doesn't
make
make
sense?
any sense. Jim Turner also
For
says,
sure.
"I still hate David Lee Roth more than Sammy." That's justified, certainly. But I loved David.
If you're
Lee
talking
Roth.
about personality,
Yeah.
David Lee Roth is very annoying, but at the very least, he made good music.
Yeah, the music is that's
He's a
where
good
I
singer.
intentionally choose to avoid knowing anything about the person so I can
I
separate
assume
the
that
art.
all musicians are horrible human beings, so I kind of don't really
Yeah.
care
Artist.
about their
Sure.
personal lives. I just want to listen to their albums, and that's
Meet the
it.
Meeples, the other. I tried watching that, and it's just it's kind of repellent to the eyes. It
Oh, Meet the
was
Feebles.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
Meet the
right.
Feebles and Bad Taste. Those movies he made in New Zealand, like
Mhm.
they're really hard to watch. I like Dead Alive. That's one he made in New Zealand. It's
Yeah,
pretty
I did
good,
see
but
that.
tried to watch
That one's
yeah.
nauseating too, though. I mean,
What was it, Time Bandits? I tried to watch Time
no, that's
Bandits.
Terry Gilliam.
And it
Oh
was like
yeah, it's
it was like
Gilliam.
I was like, oh, time traveling, and they're doing all kinds of goofy stuff, and it's like
Traveling Dwarfs.
30 minutes of making fun of Napoleon for being French and being short. And it's like,
It's a British
okay.
movie, and that's like, but in the worst kind of ways. It's
Yeah.
like,
Well, I like Terry Gilliam most of the time.
Yeah, he's done great
Well,
stuff.
I mean, Brazil, one of the fucking
Have you
best
heard
movies
of
I've ever
Terry
seen.
Gilliam? But yeah, everyone's like, oh, Time Bandits, just one of Terry Gilliam.
Yeah, Doug TenNapel really loves Time Bandits.
I feel like
can't
everyone's
get through it.
supposed to like Time Bandits because it's in the Criterion collection. So now you have to like it. Yeah.
And you're obligated
Maybe
by
you
law
should.
to like it.
I want to see The Fisher King though, but I that's been just on my list and I just haven't watched it yet.
What was a movie that I watched recently that was Tokyo Godfathers?
Oh yeah. That
That
one, yeah, that one actually legit surprised me because people are like Tokyo Godfathers.
It's the same
it's important,
problem
you
with
should see
anime.
it.
Tokyo Godfathers is on the same level as Tenji Moyu. Then no thanks. No, no thanks.
Man,
But
that
no,
couldn't be more different.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
an actual like again, that's comedy written by somebody who actually knows funny. Like Patrice O'Neill said, I'm just speaking for funny here. And that's like Azumanga, fucking that's written by somebody who actually knows funny. Chrome RT High School, fucking somebody who is legitimately a funny person on their own. They don't need anime or a fandom to be like, oh, of course it's funny. It's an anime, any of that shit. They don't need the fandom to fucking blow smoke up their ass. They're actually funny.
Well, so I was talking to Tim. We recorded a stream that I don't think is gonna like premiere until later this month, but we are talking about Spy Family, and we're talking about the way Spy Family, the manga, utilizes being a manga, that medium, to do certain things that the anime doesn't. So, like, how do you visualize Anya reading people's minds in a manga? They literally have her looking up at the thought bubbles that the characters are having, and that's something you can only do in a manga, and
Yeah.
it's funny. Like, there's a part where
Yeah,
they're
that can't play as funny in an anime. It just doesn't
no,
play the
because
same.
in the anime they just have her watching them. She's still looking up at her parents, but there's no thought bubble for her to look at. So it just looks like she's looking at their heads. And so that entire gag doesn't work. They have to play it differently in the anime because it's a different medium. So it's something you can only do in the comic book that works in that sort of visual portrayal. And it's funny. It's funnier because you can see her looking at the same thought that you're looking at. In a way, you're just like Anya. You're a mind reader, just like her.
Yeah.
So like, there's a scene in one of the issues where both Lloyd and Yor are thinking of dogs that they want to adopt for Anya, and Lloyd is thinking of like, well, I need to get a big, strong dog to protect her, and she sees like one of those scary pit bulls that eats children like in his head, and she's just looking up at this picture like on the page, and she's like terrified, and then Yor's like, well, maybe we could get her a small dog, and like, but one that can protect her, and like Yor's imagining this like Pomeranian with a knife in its mouth that's like jumping and slashing throats, and like Anya's just looking up at that like, what the fuck?
Kind of like Black Ops.
And but it works so well like in a comic. It wouldn't work as well in a cartoon. But that's people who understand, like we're making a comic, we can do these things in a comic, and let's exploit that. The worst ones are like the people who draw a comic like they're doing a storyboard for a movie or a TV show, and they just have their head in the wrong place.
Yeah. It's also Luster Dog mentioned seems like a Scott McCloud thing to do. That's also something that I think really gets overlooked. Even whatever people feel about Scott McCloud or understanding comics, there's I think some legitimately important reasons to actually read that. First of all, it's a comic, but second of all, it does have it's not about understanding comics, it's having an understanding of comics as well. It's about the things you can do in the medium, and also what was talked about earlier is like how the pro or like how an amateur will draw something more detailed and realistic, whereas the pro can draw something more stylized and cartoonish because it's like you work that much harder to learn how to boil it down to make it look appealing, but also to draw it simpler and sometimes just faster too. But to add that appealing element, the visually appeal, making it look visually appealing and good to the reader. And it's bizarre how many people in American comics have absolutely no understanding of that. And in fact, again, they get angry even at the presentation of the idea, the same way people got angry at the idea of the legitimacy of webcomics, and people are like, oh, bullshit. And then it's like, One Punch Man goes from webcomic to this big giant success, and people are sort of either forced to realize that it was true all along, or they're sort of forced to bury their heads in the sand and regress further because they're just so angry about how they're angry.
Yeah, even if they had like a semi-successful career in YouTubing as an outrage merchant, they might end up being buried and lose some of their audience,
They
maybe
just
even a
bury
lot of their
themselves.
audience.
I
When they have
mean,
to
and
switch
plus
gears
all
and talk about Amber Heard every day.
and all of that's very temporary too. Like all of that's going to dry up someday, but when it's
I mean,
not
it's
dried
irrelevant
up at the
anyway.
moment, people will act like it's going to last forever when it won't.
Well, the
A lot of it
contempt
is
for
irrelevant.
webcomics just confuses me. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a glut of them out there because literally anybody can
Man,
put
yeah, I
out a
think
webcomic, but
it's
I
a
mean, you
symptom
just
of mental illness.
yeah, you find the good ones that you like. Like I have an account on Webtoons, and I can
I'm
hit
in
my favorite
America's on
ones. So I
Webtoons.
yeah,
You know
and I
what's
like
it's interesting. I made an account on Webtoons so I could like and favorite and comment
and
on my
And
brother's
subscribe.
comments
read the ones
comics.
I want to read, and
And
and,
Yeah.
and I
it
don't read the
actually
ones I don't want to
recommended to
read.
me Mean Girls. And it's like, oh, Mean Girls, this is actually good. Oh, I've seen these
Oh yeah, the
before.
Mean Girls comic is actually it's really good too. Yeah.
Mean Girls
Yeah.
is a
Because
big deal
that was
too.
the one where you did the tie-in with Florida Girl
Oh
and
yeah,
Connor
yeah, with
North at
Florida
the
Girl. But I
Yeah.
mean, Meme Girls, like I was following Meme Girls like even before Florida Girl. Like when he was doing because I think he started Meme Girls as like internet browsers if they were anime girls. So it had like Google Chrome and Internet Explorer, and like those early comics were hilarious,
Did
and they
he
just
do
kind of
those? Because
evolved into
I remember
into
those from
different.
way back. This is from like 2006, 4chan. Yeah, the
Yeah,
OS
Yeah.
tans.
yeah, the
And it was
OS
like,
stands. I remember that. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's Meme Girls was clearly like knowing that it was sort of taking that idea and running with it and continuing with it too.
I
And
also
that's
remember that
cool.
what was it, XP tan. It was just like the
Yeah,
best
she was the
girl.
best girl. She had the biggest tits, all that
And then
stuff.
like Millennial Edition tan, who was just like always on the verge of death at
Yeah,
all moments.
she's breaking down and just always on. She's on a bed hooked up to an IV or some shit.
Like just disintegrating into nothingness.
Here, speaking of comics, let me link to the there's a new channel specifically for King Wolf Comics, which is really just like a storage place for the trailers for stuff like Literally and Villains of the Snow Sea. Don't even plan to upload to it. But if I make a new trailer for a new comic at some point, I'll use that channel to host it because it's better than a sort of comics review
And it needs more
goofy
subs. It
blog.
needs more subs to have the custom URL or something.
Yeah, it needs 100 minimum, and it's just a brand new channel that I started, so it doesn't really have any subscribers. I think I got some subscribers from a pile of subscribers I got recently for that the Tucker Carlson but gay video that we
Tucker
posted
Carlson.
a few weeks ago. Also here, let me also link to our Subscribe Star, which has a bunch of really more in-depth videos. It's got it's just it updates every 5 days with a new video.
There's some real
Just
magic
me and
on
my brother
that
just
old channel. Did we? Yeah, I'm trying to remember if we posted some of the old stuff to the Subscribe Star.
yeah, we reposted some of the old stuff to the Subscribe Star, and There's some nice backups, but there's also like every 5 days is some new content that's just like some nice bite-sized videos of me and my brother talking, discussing stuff, going over stories, screen caps, sometimes reviewing. We plan to review some other comics coming up soon. Somebody sent us a copy of a couple of comics. The what was the one? Blade Devil. Somebody wanted us to review that. So again, if you want to see us actually review comics and talk about that stuff, our subscribe star. But also, if you want to just back comics, if you want to actually check out comics, literally Chapter 2 is the comic that creators like Tim and Mark, the creators of Common America,
It's true.
they enjoy that.
We do
And
enjoy it.
it means everyone else is
Because
missing out.
literally is funnier than anything I could write. So.
Literally funnier than anything. It was, it's funny. I could find there's the clip of Tim saying that our writing eclipsed your guys's, and that's actually a clip from like 2018 before Common America even existed. It's from a stream though where we were. In fact,
if it was somebody else saying it, if it was us saying it, people will get angry at us.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the funny thing. Yeah, if it was us, people would just think we're bragging and being smug. But it's like other people said this about us, including the creators of Common America. So but here, wait, the Bunder Dome. Let me link to this because this is also Tim and Mark's YouTube channel, basically. And it's quite a good one. And if you go back at all, like if you go back to 2018, like probably the beginning of the channel, you'll find a bunch more of the really old streams of me and my brother with Tim and Mark. Those streams a bit more awkward, I think, but that's old videos. That's always fun. That's worth subscribing to as well. Common America, you can find their stuff there. In fact, the one of the biggest videos on there is the trailer for one of the Common America video or the campaigns, and then the other one is one of the videos of us talking about Norm Macdonald. That has a bunch of views.
Oh yeah, that was a good stream for the stat.
All of the streams are good, of course, but that one especially was good. It was literally 2. It definitely, if anyone out there liked the first one, you're definitely gonna love. You'll probably unconditionally love to the point.
I mean, if there's one thing I'd definitely say about literally is that it's not something you will just see anywhere else. Nobody's making comics like us.
Yeah, that's actually that's verifiable and quantifiable. That's not us just like doing some empty sloganeering and shilling bullshit snake oil stuff. Unironically, the comic, the whole series, literally is nothing like anyone's ever seen in comics.
If you're tired of the same old shit, the same old, if you're tired of Spider-Man kicked this guy, it's so dope, then you should definitely check out Literally.
You should literally go check out Literally.
If you're tired of superheroes just posturing,
dumb,
yammering,
cape shit. But anyways, so check that out. It's also about giving money to, like, if you actually care about indie comics, if you care about good indie comics that dedicate to quality, then you should donate to Literally. If you don't like good quality, then don't donate to Literally. If you like bad comics and if you have bad taste in comics, then do not donate to Literally. It's illegal for you to donate to us. But thanks again to Tim for coming on. Thanks again to Mark for coming on. It's always good to just pop on to chat. There's 3 days left on the Literally campaign, and we'll end with the trailer for Literally 1, and which has the big fancy blurbs and stuff. So if you want to stay, Mark, for that, or if you want to bail out.
I think
it's about 12. It's about 10:15, so I gotta hit the hay.
Yeah, it's getting late. So well, thanks for coming on. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me on, and back Literally too, everybody.
Yeah, go. Everyone go.
Everyone listen to Mark. Listen to Mark.
Yeah, listen to Mark. I mean, if you like Common America at all, don't you want to listen to what the creators of it say? What the kind of
so anticipating? You people are all scrambling to get your new Common America. Well, here's something that the people who make Common America are scrambling to see.
Yeah,
We're
exactly.
YouTube influencers.
Yeah, exactly. It's
So
you
let's
know,
influence
you know
you.
what they say is that YouTube influencers should all support each other, no matter what.
Don't they
Um,
already do that?
Anyway, so the script reading here. This was from the script reading by Nice Mod.
Yeah, so yeah, that's where I cut this. And this trailer, I'm just basically well, I'm not playing it off the channel. Thanks to Mark for showing up. I'm not playing it off the channel. I'm playing it just from the raw video. So here, I'll play this and then we'll bail out. So also thanks everyone for showing up and clearly watching our stream to support good comics like ours, not bad comics like everyone else's. So all right, here's the thing, and we'll bail. Bye.
My mom says I have to invite you to my birthday party on Saturday.
Gee, I'd love to, but when I get home, it's like I'm literally fighting a life and death battle with my fellow warriors.
What? Ever! My burden,
The
it can never be shared
I know
with the
I'm
commoners
still
of this
broadcasting.
world.
The screen thing was from that's from an old meme too.
Helen ready for teleport.
That's like pick it
Or the
Activate.
never view. Yeah. I can't believe this is what the comic's about. It's depressing. Wait, this comic is terrible.
It's so
It's
depressing.
depressing.
Sorry about the delay, kid. Shock troopers surged through our front lines. I just got the teleporter set up again.
That's alright. Now that I'm here, they don't stand a chance.
One of our best. Yay! Very cool.
Super R-Type had a good soundtrack.
Yeah, it sure did.
Proud of
Okay,
Trigger.
there. Okay. Again, thanks for showing up. Thanks for watching, and big thanks for Tim and Mark. Especially big thanks for Tim and Mark for supporting us, and not just for helping to support our comics and stuff, but also to for paying us to write a comic for Tim to draw. That's who else can claim that they received money from an artist for an artist to draw what they wrote? I mean, usually it's the other way around. You got to pay the artist to have them draw what you wrote, but with Tim, it was the other way around. So that's a great thing. Anyways, wrapping up, great show as usual. Probably the best. We're probably the best at streaming about comics. Everyone else is not very good. Tim and Mark are good, but they're on with us, so kind of counts. It all collectively counts. Give us money at the comic. It's the literally 2 campaign, a few days left, linked below, and should have listened to Shitty